Section 18 of Genetic Studies of Genius, Volume 1, Mental and Physical Traits of 1,000 Gifted Children by Lewis Terman. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by Leon Harvey. Chapter 17. Tests of Character and Personality Traits. Tests of character and personality traits are a relatively new development in psychology and still on a much less satisfactory basis than tests of intelligence, information, or school achievement. However, in view of the great desirability of obtaining character data, which would be more objective than the trait ratings supplied by parents and teachers, and in view of the promising results which had been secured by Voelker, Cady, and other workers in this field, a comparison of gifted and unselected children on a battery of such tests seems worth undertaking. Methods of approach which were considered include the free association method of Kent and Rosenoff, the Presley method of testing emotionality, the Downey-Will temperament test, the Woodworth-Cady questionnaire test of psychopathic tendencies, and the methods developed by Voelker and Cady for testing honesty and incorrigibility. The Kent-Rosenoff test would doubtless have yielded results of great interest, but had to be ruled out because it is not adapted to group testing. The Presley method was not very suitable for young children and had not been sufficiently validated. The Downey-Will temperament test was dropped for consideration because of the extremely low reliability and validity coefficients which it generally yielded. The Voelker-Cady tests, on the other hand, were suitable for children, and being subjected to rigid statistical procedures, and had been demonstrated to have a fairly high degree of reliability and validity. Mr. A.S. Raubenheimer undertook the task of preparing a series of tests which would be diagnostic of much the same traits Voelker and Cady had attempted to measure, at the same time free from certain objectionable features of their tests. While describing his experiment, a brief account will be given of the work of Voelker and Cady. Voelker devised 10 tests of trustworthiness, the total score of which, applied to boys, correlated 0.75 with the total of another similar series, and, on an average, 0.60 with the judgment of teachers and scout leaders. The traits tested were as follows. 1. Willingness to accept undeserved credit, overstatement test. 2. Suggestibility, as indicated by the M and N test in the Downey-Will temperament series. 3. Willingness to accept help in solving puzzles after promising not to accept help. 4. Conscientiousness in returning borrowed property. 5. Dishonesty in accepting overchange. 6. Willingness to accept a tip for a trifling courtesy. 7. Trustworthiness in performing a routine task under temptation to neglect it, pushing a button every 2 minutes for 10 minutes. 8. Similar to Test 7, task is to cancel A's in a book containing extremely interesting pictures. 9. Willingness to peep when placed on one's honor to perform a task with the eyes closed. 10. Willingness to cheat in scoring one's own responses to a test. The Voelker tests were all of the performance type. That is, the subject was confronted by a natural situation in which there was genuine temptation, and his score depended on how he met the situation. There can be no doubt that there were several tests of actual trustworthiness. Some of his tests were unsuitable for our purpose because they could not be given to groups, others because they necessitate subjecting the child to so much temptation that their use was considered objectionable for the present purposes. Cady set himself the task of finding tests which would yield a measure of the moral traits involved in the adjustment of children to the social and mandatory requirements of the school. That is, measures of incorrigibility. Some of the tests which he tried out, among others, were the following. 1. A test of trustworthiness in following directions in a motor task, dotting circles or tracing mazes with the eyes shut, when there is considerable temptation and opportunity to cheat by peeping. Modification of Voelker's test. 2. A test of honesty in scoring one's own intelligence test blank in the face of temptation and opportunity to cheat by copying in the correct responses from the key while scoring. Voelker. 3. A test of modesty and accuracy in statements about knowledge possessed. Modification of Voelker's overstatement test. 4. A test of moral judgment, in which the subject indicates by the figures 1, 2, 3, or 4 degrees of blame attaching to each of a number of moral traits. Modification of Prezzi's test. 5. A modification of the Woodworth questionnaire test of tendencies likely to be associated with psychopathy or emotional instability. These tests, which were all suitable for mass use, were given to unselected boys, delinquent boys, and boys specially selected on the basis of several teachers' ratings of boys representing the extremes of corrigability found among 12 to 14-year-olds in the public school of Fresno, California. The composite ratings secured for the last group had a reliability of 0.95, and furnished an exceptionally satisfactory criterion for judging the validity of the tests. Reliability and validity coefficients found for the tests, based upon data from 150 boys of 12 to 14 years, were as follows. 1. Trustworthiness in motor task, reliability 0.74, validity 0.40. 2. Honesty in scoring on test, reliability 0.58, validity 0.19. 3. Overstatement, reliability 0.58, validity 0.41. 4. Moral judgment, reliability 0.38, validity 0.20 to 0.31. 5. Woodworth questionnaire, reliability 0.75, validity 0.36 to 0.42. Total weighted score of above, reliability 0.75, validity 0.58. These correlations are lower than are yielded by the best intelligence tests with groups of equal heterogeneity, but they are as high as the correlations given by many achievement tests in common use. They demonstrate, rather conclusively, the value of the test method in the study of character traits. Raubenheimer arranged a new form of the overstatement test and devised a set of 6 new tests, all intended to throw light upon tendencies to moral instability. A brief description of each follows. 1. Overstatement. A. This test is a modification of one which has been used by Flanagan. 50 book titles were listed on the test blank, 20 of which were fictitious. The score is the number of fictitious titles marked. The instructions were as follows. We want to see who has read the most books. You are to mark a cross on the dotted line in front of every book you have ever read, no matter how long ago you read it. After you have finished marking the crosses, count up the number of crosses you have marked. This number will be your score. We want to see who will have the best score. Afterwards, we will have you stand up and tell your score. A perfect score is 50. Look at the sample. Sample 1. Cross, Andersen's Fairy Tales. 15 of the 50 items follow. Robinson Crusoe, Little Men, Uncle Remus Stories, The Underground Patrol, White Fang, Seaside Adventures, Hans Brinker, Scouting in Strange Lands, 5 Little Peppers, By England's Aid, Call the Wild, Campaign in Argentina, Tom Sawyer, Snipe Without a Trace, The Friday Murders. Now count up your score and put the number you have read in the space here. Remember, a perfect score is 50. 2. Overstatement. B. This test, which is a modification of a test used by Voelker, consists of 2 parts. The first part calls for a statement of amount of knowledge the child has in regard to 80 items of information. The second part, given later without warning, tests the child's actual information on the same 80 items. The score is a percent of overstatement or understatement. Directions. On the dotted line before each question put 2, 1 or 0 to tell how well you know the thing it asks about. Put down 2 if you know it very well, put down 1 if you know it fairly well, put down 0 if you know nothing about it. First sample. Can you ride a bicycle? Second sample. Can you skate on roller skates? Third sample. Can you drive a car? Sample items follow. Do you know who discovered America? Do you know who wrote Huckleberry Finn? Do you know who was the prophet who spent the night in the lion's den? Do you know how to find the square root of decimals? Do you know how many degrees there are on a centigrade thermometer? Do you know where Calcutta is? Do you know what causes an eclipse of the sun? Do you know what the receiving wires of a wireless are called? Do you know how water enters the roots of plants? Now add up your score. A perfect score is 160 points. In the second part, the subject was told to underline the correct word in such sentences as the following. America was discovered by Drake, Columbus, Balboa, Cook. Huckleberry Finn was written by Alger, Dickens, Henty, Mark Twain. The prophet who spent the night in the lion's den was Daniel, Joah, David, Joel. The square root of 0.0081 is 0.9, 0.09, 0.009, 9. The number of degrees on a centigrade thermometer is 32, 100, 180, 212. Calcutta is in India, Egypt, Siberia, Mexico. An eclipse of the sun is caused by the shadow of the Earth, Moon, Mars, Jupiter. The receiving wires of a wireless are called the amplifiers, detectors, reflectors, antennae. Water enters the roots of plants by capillarity, osmosis, evaporation, solution. 3. Questionable reading preferences. The child is asked to place a number from 1 to 10 before each of 10 book titles to indicate how well he would like to read the book. 1 meaning greatest preference, 10 least. The score is the sum of the squares of the deviations of the individual items from the correct order as determined by competent judges. 2 lists were given separately. One of them is as follows. A Daring Rescue, Roy Black, the Master Thief, Captains of Great Teams, Hobo Stories, Running Away with the Circus, The Adventures of Boys Who Became Great Men, Summer Camp Adventures, With the Gang in the Black Streets, The Boy Inventor, The Escape Through the Woods. 4. Questionable character preferences. This test consists of 8 brief paragraphs, each characterizing the boy. The subject is asked to place before each characterization a number from 1 to 8 to show how well he would like to have as a chum the boy described. The test is scored in the same manner as Test 3. 2 such lists of 8 items each are given separately. 4 of the items in one list are as follows. Dick joined the Boy Scouts as soon as he was old enough. He did not like it at first. The drill and the rules were hard. Now he is a troop leader and is planning a camp in the mountains next summer. Ray Stevens is at school now, but he is anxious to get out. He wants to become a taxi driver. Ray says that taxi drivers have an easy time, but they need not work so hard, and they go about a great deal. Ted is a poor boy, and although he is at school, he must help provide for the family. Ted studies hard and also plays on the team. He wants to become a doctor. Bill Evans is 14, and he is a leader of his gang. He always manages to get his men home safely after they have had a good time around the ballroom. Just last week they saw Tom Mix at the movies without paying. 5. Social attitudes. 24 things or ideas were named, each followed by 4 statements expressing various kinds of reactions to the thing or idea presented. The subject is asked to check the one statement that most nearly tells how he feels about it. Score is the number of questionable items checked. Samples are as follows. Chums. It is hard to go without them. You cannot always trust them. They sometimes squeal on you. It is best to have them in your gang. Boy Scouts. They have too many rules. They have to drill too hard. It is no fun. They are regular fellows and have lots of fun. They are like sissies. Teachers. They work hard. They know they can punish you. They're not fair to you. They're kind of cranky. Playgrounds. There are always fellows watching you. They make you play games you don't like. There is no chance to do what you want to. You can have a good time there. Policemen. They have it in for the kids. They are glad to help you out. It is fun to fool them. They are just big bluffs. Having a paper route. It gives you a chance to get away from home. You can earn some money. You have a chance to get around town alone. You don't have to be so much with your lessons. 6. Activity preferences. Of 3 things to do, the subject was to check the one thing he liked best. The test contained 12 items of this nature, the score being the number of items in which some other than the best response was checked. This test was not used with the gifted children for fear of possible criticism. It is highly adapted for use with children of superior social and moral environment. 2 of the items are as follows. A. Go camping with the Boy Scouts. Go around seeing the country, getting lifts as you go. Quit school and go with the circus. B. Match pennies and win. Have a paper route. Win money at the shooting gallery. 7. Rating the seriousness of offences. This is a carefully worked out version of a test which has long been in use. 10 offences were listed, covering a wide range in nature and seriousness. They had been selected from a much larger number of offences actually committed by delinquent boys, and they differed from one another in seriousness by equal steps. The subject was to number them from 1 to 10 according to seriousness. The score was a sum of the squares of the deviations from the correct order. This test was finally omitted from the series used with our gifted children. It correlated too highly with intelligence, and some of its items were deemed objectionable on moral grounds. Some of the items were as follows. B. Sam set fire to the public school which he attended. D. Bob ran away from home to get a job, getting his room and board from another family. F. Ted played hooky to go to a circus. J. Joe entered the house of the people next door and took $2.50. If the derivation of the above tests involved in each case a considerable amount of experimental work, which we cannot here enter into, the purpose of the tests was to find whether differences known to exist between 2 groups with respect to their social and moral adjustments can be detected in a test situation. After a preliminary experiment, each test was made up in 2 forms, and the entire battery was given to the following groups of subjects, all boys. 1A. 50 boys in a superior type of school, each selected by the teachers as belonging in the highest quartile of the 13-year-old boys with respect to reliability, stability, and healthy-mindedness. 1B. 37 boys, 13 years old in the same school, selected by the teachers as belonging in the lowest quartile with respect to the above traits. 2A. 42 boys, 11 years old, in the same school, corresponding to Group A1. 2B. 36 boys, 11 years old, in the same school, corresponding to Group A2. 3A. 43 boys, 13 years old, in the highest quartile, in a school of somewhat inferior social status. 3B. 40 boys, 13 years old, in the lowest quartile of the school. 4A. 41 boys, 11 years old, in the highest quartile. 5B. 36 boys, 11 years old, in the lowest quartile. 6. 42 boys of 12 to 14 years in a parental school in the same city, delinquents. 7. 36 boys of 13 to 14 years in the Whittier State School for delinquents. Both forms of the test were given to all groups, and in addition, Form B of the National Intelligence Tests. The 13-year-olds of Group 1B and 3B combined were used for determining the reliabilities of the tests. In the case of each of the character tests, one form was correlated with the other, and the reliability of the 2 forms combined was then computed by the use of Brown's formula. The resulting coefficients were as follows. 1 over Statement A, books read, reliability coefficients 74. 2 over Statement B, knowledge claimed, reliability coefficients 78. 3 reading preferences, reliability coefficients 80. 4 social preferences, reliability coefficients 79. 5 social attitudes, reliability coefficients 77. 6 activity preferences, reliability coefficients 74. 7 offense ratings, reliability coefficients 78. 8 national intelligence scores, reliability coefficients 86. Table 177 gives the same 13-year-olds the intercorrelations of the tests. The intercorrelations corrected for attenuation, labeled C, and, in parenthesis, the correlated intercorrelations found with intelligence is rendered constant by the method for partial correlation. Table 177 is displayed on the page, intercorrelations of the Raubenheimer tests. The above intercorrelations show that the tests do not duplicate one another greatly, and that they are measuring something which is not identical with the traits measured by the National Intelligence Tests. However, tests 2, 5, 6, and 7 correlate rather more highly with intelligence than would be desirable. It was later found possible to reduce the defect of test 2 by the use of a different method of scoring. Biserial R coefficients were computed to show the efficiency of the several tests differentiated between the following groups. 1A and 1B, highest and lowest 13-year-olds in the better school. 2A and 2B, highest and lowest 13-year-olds in the good school. 3A and 3B, highest and lowest 13-year-olds in the poorer school. 4A and 4B, highest and lowest 11-year-olds in the poorer school. 1A and parental school group, 2A and parental school group, 3A and parental school group, 4A and parental school group. Nearly all of these coefficients were large enough to be significant, but were lower for the first 4 comparisons listed above than for the last 4. It appears that the upper and lower quartiles of unselected children do not give very widely contrasting groups in the schools used. Teachers frequently complained that many of the pupils they had to offer for the low group were highly less reliable, stable, and healthy-minded than their best pupils. On the other hand, each of the high quartile groups yielded a striking contrast to the parental school group, which, judged by the scores earned, was the worst group tested. The wittier group of committed delinquents held an intermediate position, possibly because of the exceptionally favourable influences to which they had been subjected in the school. The biserial Rs for the A groups and the parental school group were as follows. A table is displayed on the page comparing the parental school versus the A groups. The correlation of total weighted score with the criterion ranges, therefore, from 0.47 to 0.74, with an average of 0.62 for the 4 comparisons. It is higher for the 13-year than for the 11-year groups, probably because there is an average difference of more than a year and a half in the mental ages of the 13-year and parental school pupils, whereas the 11-year-olds are of about the same mental age as the parental school subjects. The means and the standard deviations of total scores for the different groups were as given below. Attention is called to the fact that because of the method of scoring, low scores are better than high scores. A table is displayed on the page comparing the mean to the standard deviation. Table 178 shows the difference between each A group and the parental school group expressed as a multiple of its standard deviation. It will be noted that the differences are significant in nearly all the comparisons, and that for the total score they are very large. Table 178 is displayed on the page. Differences between means of various groups in the Raubenheimer tests, expressed as multiples of the standard deviations of the differences. Selection of character tests for the gifted group. In the selection of tests for the gifted group, from those which had been devised by Cady and Raubenheimer, other factors than reliability and validity had to be considered. Cady's test of honesty in recording scores, although an excellent test, was omitted on the ground that it might be deemed morally objectionable by parents or teachers. Raubenheimer's tests of activity preference and offence ratings were omitted for the same reason, and for the additional reason that they were thought to differentiate less effectively in the upper moral levels than in the lower. They also correlated rather too highly with intelligence. Cady's test of moral judgment was omitted because of its low reliability and low validity, and because it had been shown to correlate too highly with intelligence. The following battery of tests was finally selected. 1. Overstatement A, Knights Raubenheimer. 2. Overstatement B, Part 1. Voelker Cady Raubenheimer. 3. Reading preferences Raubenheimer. 4. Character preferences Raubenheimer. 5. Social attitudes Raubenheimer. 6. Trustworthiness in following directions Voelker Cady. 7. Questionnaire test of emotional instability Woodworth-Cady. Description of Test 6. Trustworthiness. This test was given with minor departures from the procedures laid down by Cady, The directions were as follows. Circles. Here is a test to see how well you can use your hands with your eyes shut. E points to a blank, see figure 28, which should be pinned up on a wall in plain view of all, and says, see these circles, pointing, numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You are to lay the paper flat on your desk and hold it here, with the fingers of the left hand, E points to place. Then take your pencil in the other hand and put the point down at the cross where it says start here. Next look carefully at the circles numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and see where they are. Then when I say go, you must shut your eyes so that you cannot see and try to make a cross with your pencil in each one of the 5 circles. There will be 5 trials, and after each trial we will see who gets the most crosses in the little circles. Some people get nearly all of them in. Watch me. E demonstrates, with butt of pencil, taking care not to miss any of the circles. You are to do it the same way, but with your eyes shut. Shut them when I say go. Pupils are requested to sit up straight, hold paper squarely on the desk before them, and place pencil down across. Now look carefully and see where the circles are. After 10 seconds, go. 5 trials with same sheet. After each trial, children record scores as per instructions at center of the sheet. After each trial, E says, how many got the cross in all 5 circles? How many got it in 2 or 3 circles? How many did not get it in any? Squares. Here is another test a little like the other. Examiner demonstrates with blank, see figure 29, pinned up in view. You hold the paper with your fingers here. You put the pencil here. E puts pencil across in larger square. You look carefully at the bigger square. Then you shut your eyes and make a line with your pencil clear around the square without touching the sides. E does it. Next you start here. E puts pencil down across the next larger square. Shut your eyes and make a line clear around the next square. Only this time you go the other direction. Then you start here and make a line clear around the next square. E does it. Each time you must change and go the other direction. Figure 28 is displayed on the page. Circles used in trustworthiness test reduced. Pupils are told to sit up straight, to hold paper squarely on the desk before them, and to place pencil down across. Then look carefully to see where you make the line. After 10 seconds, go. After each trial say, how many got clear around without touching the sides more than just a little? Figure 29 is displayed on the page. Squares used in trustworthiness test reduced. Scoring of trustworthiness test. Cady scored each complete performance with the circles as positive or negative, according as there was or was not evidence that the subject had cheated. Similarly with the squares. We have used instead a graded score derived as follows. Circles. Number of crosses in circle 2 multiplied by 3. Number of crosses in circle 3 multiplied by 4. Number of crosses in circle 4 multiplied by 5. Circles 1 and 5 are ignored, as crosses may frequently be placed in these without cheating. Squares. Ignore the smallest square. For each of the other squares, the score is obtained as follows. Score 1 for each corner, except the first, where the line drawn is within the boundary lines. In addition, give 1 if the entire line is within the boundaries, does not actually cross the line. This makes a possible unweighted score of 4 for each square. These scores are then weighted in the following manner. Score on square 2 is to be multiplied by 2. Score on square 3 is to be multiplied by 3. Score on square 4 is to be multiplied by 4. Score on square 5 is to be multiplied by 6. Total score of the test equals sum of score on squares and circles. Description of Test 7, Woodworth-Cady questionnaire. This test was devised by Woodworth in 1918 for use in identifying soldiers having psychotic tendencies. In arranging it, the author sifted the leading manuals of psychiatry, made a list of the symptoms most generally agreed upon by competent authorities as being frequently associated with psychopathy, and embodied as many of these symptoms as possible in questions to be answered by yes or no. The war came to an end before the validity of the test could be thoroughly established, but it was given to one regiment and to several groups of normal and psychopathic subjects. With a group of subjects in a private hospital for nervous patients, it yielded scores which overlapped only slightly those earned by normal subjects. In its original form, the questionnaire, because of items it contained relating to sex, was not suitable for use with school children. It was later expurgated and revised by Ellen Matthews, who then gave it in the revised form to 1,133 unselected school children and to 376 other children, and made a detailed analysis of the responses to individual items and revised the test. Cady made a number of additional changes based upon the extent to which individual items differentiated children rated by other criteria as superior or inferior in emotional instability. He also arranged it in two forms in order to determine its reliability. In one form, the questions were of a positive type throughout. In the second form, they were of a negative type. For example, Form A contains the question, "Do you always get on well with your teachers or principal?" In Form B, this item runs, "Do you often have trouble with your teachers or principal?" We have given only Form A, and this with slight alterations. 2 or 3 items were omitted because they were considered objectionable. For example, the question, "Do you feel that your parents are not really your own?" Certain changes were also made in the padding, that is, in the items inserted merely to lull the suspicious of the subject as to the purpose of the test. Finally, small changes were made in the wording of a few of the significant items. We reproduce the entire list as it was given to the gifted and control groups. The starred items only are scored. Directions. Look at the directions here, pointing. It says, answer every question as truthfully and honestly as you can by drawing a line under the right answer, as shown in the samples. First sample. Are there 7 days in a week? The right answer is yes, so the word yes has a line under it. Second sample. Do you sleep 15 hours a day? All of you draw a line under yes or no to tell whether you sleep 15 hours a day. Pause. Below are other questions. Answer every one truthfully and honestly by drawing a line under yes or no. Do not skip any. Go. Allow all or practically all to finish, exceptionally so pupils may be urged to go faster. Scoring. The score is the number of starred items answered correctly. The correct answers are underlined in the following reproduction of the test. On the following pages, a survey is displayed with 85 questions with yes and no responses. Scoring of overstatement B. A new method had to be devised for scoring the overstatement test, as the method used by Raubenheimer yielded a score which was considerably influenced by the factor of intelligence. The method substituted was as follows. A. Part 1. Child's statement of knowledge score equals sum of the 2's, omitting the 1's found to increase the reliability. Only 40 of the 80 items of the test were used. B. Part 2. Score equals 2, parenthesis, R minus 1/3 multiplied by W, close parenthesis, where R equals number of items answered correctly and W the number marked wrongly. C. Final score. For overstatement, first minus second divided by 80 minus second. For understatement, second minus first divided by second, where first equals score on part 1, second equals score on part 2, and 80 equals total possible score for the 40 items. The method takes account of the fact that a child can overstate only with reference to the items which he does not know, and that he can understate only with reference to the items which he does know. Score below minus 25, 1 sigma, are counted as minus 25. Subjects tested. The above tests were given to the following gifted and controlled subjects. A table is displayed on the page comparing the age to the gifted and control groups. The control group D, was the same as that used in connection with the test of intellectual, social, and activity interests. It was composed of unselected pupils in grades 4 to 8 in 2 schools of San Jose, California. All the pupils in grades 4 to 8 of these schools were tested, but those of age 15 and over were omitted from the calculations. The tests were given in the following order. 1. Overstatement A. 2. Overstatement B, Part 1. 3. Reading preferences. 4. Character preferences. 5. Social attitudes. Brief recess. 6. Trustworthiness. Squares and circles. 7. Overstatement B, Part 2. 8. Woodworth-Cady questionnaire. With the following exceptions and 2 forms of tests 1 to 7 were given to both the gifted and control groups. A. The control group was given only one form of test 5, in order to make the results on this test comparable with those of the gifted group which took both forms. The theoretical score on the 2 forms was computed for the children of the control group. The formula used was as follows. Mean for total of both forms, gifted group, divided by mean for one form gifted group, multiplied by score for one form control. This assumes for children of both groups the same ratio of gain from the first form to the second form. B. Test 2 also was given to the control group only in one form, 40 items instead of 80. Both forms were given to the gifted group, but the second form was omitted in scoring. A single form of this test has a fairly high reliability. Derivation of total score. The total score includes a score on the Woodworth-Cady questionnaire. Although this test is intended primarily to bring to light abnormal emotional tendencies, while all the other tests are more specifically directed toward the measurement of moral traits, Cady's results indicate that emotional instability is probably an important factor in the total complex of traits making for moral deviation. In weighting the test to secure a total score, the following factors were taken into account. Reliability, validity as shown by correlation with criterion, variability, and average intercorrelation with other tests. Other things equal, the weight given should vary directly with reliability and validity, and inversely with variability and average intercorrelation. Possible variation and the results of the factor of intelligence was also taken into account. One would expect the brightest children to be more likely to divine the purpose of the tests, with the result that their responses would be less spontaneous and less genuine than those of average or intellectually inferior children. Raubenheimer questioned each of his groups, after the examination was over, to find whether they had understood the purpose of the tests. The replies indicated that probably fewer than 5% of the children, even in the 13-year groups, had guessed correctly. It appears that for the large majority of unselected children, the tests are not invalidated by this factor. In the case of our highly selected gifted group, the variation of results from this source may be, and probably is, greater, especially with tests 3, 4, and 5. The factor of dissimulation is pretty effectually ruled out in tests 2 and 6, and is believed not to affect seriously tests 1 and 7. 2 judges, Terman and Goodenow, with the above factors in mind, weighted the tests independently of each other. Their combined judgments yielded the following weights, which were therefore used in obtaining the total score. 1. Overstatement A, 2. 2. Overstatement B, 1. 3. Reading preferences, 0.1. 4. Character preferences, 0.1. 5. Social attitudes, 5. 6. Trustworthiness in following directions, 1. 7. Woodworth-Cady questionnaire, 2. Comparison of gifted and control groups. Tables 179 to 186 give for each test, and for the total score by age and sex, the means and standard deviations of gifted and control groups, the difference between the means, the standard deviation of the difference, and the difference expressed as a multiple of its standard deviation. Attention is called to the fact that the scores of the 7, 8, and 9-year-old gifted children are compared with the 10-year norm of the control. It was not possible to extend the norms lower than 10 years, as unselected children below that age are frequently unable to understand and carry out the instructions. Since most of the tests show more or less increase in mean score with age, the method of comparison used is somewhat unfair to the gifted children below 10 years. Attention is again called to the fact that low scores are better than high scores. Table 179 is displayed on the page. Comparison of means, Test 1, Overstatement A. Table 180 is displayed on the page, comparison of means test 2 in terms of percent of overstatement. Table 181 is displayed on the page, comparison of means test 3 book preferences. Table 182 is displayed on the page, comparison of means test 4 character preferences. Table 183 is displayed on the page, comparison of means test 5 social attitudes. Table 184 displayed on the page, comparison of means test 6 trustworthiness. Table 105 displayed on the page, comparison of means test 7 Woodworth-Cady questionnaire. Table 106 displayed on the page, comparison of means total score of character tests. It is possible to summarize the above tables very briefly. The differences between the two groups are large enough at nearly all ages to be highly significant. In the case of Test 1, the differences are significant at only part of the ages. In the total score of the 7 tests, the difference is very large at all ages. In the gifted group, girls are significantly superior to boys in most of the tests, while in the control group the sex difference is much smaller. However, in both groups, boys do better than girls in the test of trustworthiness, circles and squares. The detailed results on sex differences are as follows. 1. Overstatement A, no sex difference. 2. Overstatement B. Gifted girls are much superior to gifted boys, and tend to understate rather than overstate. Control girls are only slightly superior to control boys. 3. Book preferences. Girls are superior to boys in both groups. 4. Character preferences. Gifted girls are superior to gifted boys. No marked sex difference in the control group. 5. Social attitudes. Gifted girls are superior to gifted boys at all ages except 13, and control girls are superior to control boys at all ages except 11. 6. Trustworthiness. In both gifted and control groups, the boys make a better showing than the girls in 5 out of 7 age comparisons. 7. Woodworth-Cady questionnaire. Gifted girls do slightly better than gifted boys, while in the control group there is no significant sex difference. Tables 187 and 188 give other forms of comparison between the two groups. In general, from 60 to 85% of the gifted equal or exceed the mean score of the control group. The high percent for Test 5, social attitudes, may be partially spurious, as this test may be vitiated by the fact that children of superior intelligence tend to be more on their guard. However, Tests 2 and 6, Overstatement B and Trustworthiness, in which this factor could hardly have entered, show respectively about 70% and 60% of the gifted at or above the mean of the control group. The order of the test with respect to degree of superiority of the gifted over the control group, Table 188, is as follows. Boys, Test 5, Social Attitudes. Test 4, Character Preferences. Test 3, Book Preferences. Test 6, Trustworthiness. Test 7, Woodworth-Cady questionnaire. Test 2, Overstatement B. Test 1, Overstatement A. Girls, Test 5, Social Attitudes. Test 4, Character Preferences. Test 3, Book Preferences. Test 7, Woodworth-Cady questionnaire. Test 2, Overstatement B. Test 6, Trustworthiness. Test 1, Overstatement A. Figure 30 gives the curves based on the age means of the total character scores, 7 tests combined, for the gifted and control groups, separately by sex. These curves possess considerable interest. So far as the writer knows, they are the first curves of character growth ever constructed on the basis of objective tests of proved reliability and validity. They reveal, in a very impressive way, the great superiority of the gifted over the control, and the noticeable superiority of girls over boys in each group. On the preceding page, Table 187 is displayed. Further comparison of gifted and control groups in Test 1 and Test 2, Overstatement A and Overstatement B. Table 188 is displayed on the page. Percent of gifted who equal or surpass the mean of the control group in Test 1 to 7 and in total score. They indicate that the gifted child of 9 years is fully as developed in their character traits measured by these tests as the unselected child of 14 years. An interesting feature of the curves is the fact that the means for boys, both gifted and control, are lower at 13 than at 12, but rise at a steep angle after 13. The curve for gifted girls shows a plateau a year earlier, but that for control girls 2 years earlier. But the adolescent improvement in character traits comes earlier with girls than with boys. Figure 30 is displayed on the page. Mean total scores of gifted and controlled children by age on 7 character tests. Summary. 1. The total score of 10 tests of trustworthiness, devised by Voelker, yielded a reliability coefficient of 0.75 and correlated to the extent of 0.60, with a criterion based upon the judgments of teachers and scout leaders. The total score of Cady's 5 group tests of incorrigability yielded a reliability coefficient of 0.75 and correlated 0.58 with the judgments of teachers. These studies demonstrate that it is possible, by means of objective tests, to make reliable comparisons of groups with respect to certain important character traits. 2. Building upon the results of Voelker, Cady, and others, Raubenheimer devised 7 tests of moral instability, each with a reliability of 0.74 to 0.80. The total score of this battery yielded by serial R's as high as 0.72 and 0.74 between the parental school groups and groups selected by teachers as superior with respect to moral stability. These tests were shown not to duplicate one another objectively and not to be primarily measures of intelligence. 3. A battery of 7 character tests was made up, composed of 2 of the best tests from Cady's series and 5 of the best of Raubenheimer's series. This battery was given to 532 children of the main gifted group and to 530 unselected children of the control group. Reliability and validity coefficients for this exact battery have not been computed, but these can be inferred from the data of Cady and Raubenheimer to be above 0.75 for reliability and above 0.60 for validity. 4. Comparison of mean scores of the gifted and control groups by age shows a significant superiority of the gifted group for both sexes and at all ages. On the separate tests, from 60 to 80% of the gifted equal or exceed the means of the control group. On the total score of tests 1 to 7, 85% of the gifted equal or exceed the means of the control group. 5. The gifted child of 9 years has reached a level of character development corresponding roughly to that of unselected children of 14 years. 6. In most of the tests, the gifted girl makes a better average score than the gifted boy, while in the control group the sex differences, when any are found, are considerably smaller. In the test of honesty, however, the boys of both groups make a better showing than the girls. 7. Girls begin their adolescent spurt in character development about a year earlier than boys. 8. Sex differences in the variability of scores earned in these tests are for the most part small and inconsistent. 9. Although these tests do not make possible a very reliable comparison of individual children, they warrant the conclusion that in the traits which they measure, the gifted group is decisively superior to the control group, and that this superiority is greater for girls than for boys. End of section 18. Section 19 of Genetic Studies of Genius, Volume 1. Mental and Physical Traits of 1,000 Gifted Children by Lewis Terman. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by Leon Harvey. Chapter 18. Trait Ratings. The experiment to be reported in this chapter grew out of the writer's earlier experience with trait ratings in connection with studies of various gifted and subnormal groups of children. The selection of traits to be rated and the method of securing the ratings have both been a matter of gradual development. For several years the following traits were used: general intelligence, capacity for sustained attention, willpower, persistence, dependability, studiousness, cheerfulness, obedience, conscientiousness, courage, unselfishness, sense of humor, evenness of temper, intellectual modesty, emotional self-control, physical self-control, initiative, general health, social adaptability, and leadership. The 20 traits are here named in order of teachers' mean ratings of 50 gifted children. The rank order of the traits based upon the means of the ratings given the same children by their parents correlated 0.76 with this order. In general, the rank order of types of traits, from highest to lowest, for gifted children was intellectual, volitional, moral, emotional, physical, and social. The ratings were made by placing a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 before the name of each trait, according as the child was judged to be very superior, superior, average, inferior, or very inferior. Between 1918 and 1920, ratings were secured by the same method for 121 gifted children on 46 traits. Mean ratings were found for groups of traits as given in Table 189. Means were not computed for the traits separately because of the large part played by halo effects when an individual was rated on so many different traits. The mean ratings by teachers is higher than that by parents for 4 of the 5 groups of traits. On the other, will and activity. Teachers and parents rate about equally high. Table 189 is displayed on the page, mean ratings of classes of traits in preliminary experiment. The order of the trait groups, from highest to lowest mean rating for 121 gifted children is as follows. Teachers, mental, will and activity, emotional, social, psychophysical. Parents, mental, will and activity, social, emotional, psychophysical. The fact that all the means exceed 3, the hypothetical normal, may not be especially significant, since unselected children were not rated on this preliminary study. In the rating of almost any group of children, there is a constant tendency to rate too high. The order of the groups of traits is, however, significant. When a larger investigation was undertaken in 1921, considerable thought was given to a revision of the rating method which had previously been used. The number of traits to be rated was reduced to 25, as experience had shown that the use of the larger number made discrimination difficult and increased the halo effects. In making the final selection of traits to be rated, the leading experimental and descriptive studies of character and personality were consulted. A tentative list of traits was made out and submitted to several judges, who were asked to rate each trait on 2 points. A, with respect to its importance for total character or personality, and B, with respect to the probable accuracy of the ratings which would be secured by its use. From the tentative list, the 25 traits later to be described were finally retained. The method of securing ratings by the assignment of the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 was abandoned in favor of the cross-on-a-line method, which had been found to introduce less halo effect. Effort was made to define the 2 extremes of each trait in as definite and concrete terms as possible. The instructions and rating forms are reproduced in the following pages. The order in which the traits are given is one which it was thought would reduce halo effects and encourage objectivity of rating. The traits at the beginning of the list are those which the average judge would be most likely to rate with discrimination and frankness. The intellectual traits are near the end. A form is displayed on the following pages, ratings on physical, mental, social, and moral traits. Effort was made to have each child of all the gifted groups rated on the entire list of traits by at least one teacher and by the parents, by either parent alone or by the 2 working together. This was accomplished in the large majority of cases. Of the 643 children in the main experimental group, almost 600 were rated by teachers and more than 600 by parents. In about 25 cases, the ratings were received too late for tabulation. Ratings were also secured from teachers for 523 unselected children of Control Group A, described on page 177 to 178. The age distributions are given in Table 190. Table 190 is displayed on the page, age distribution of subjects given trait ratings. It was feared that many parents and teachers would hesitate to make the ratings, either because of the difficulty of the task or because of reluctance to record judgments of such confidential nature. The response, however, was far better than had been expected. Very few complained of the difficulty of making the ratings, and only in rare cases was a trait omitted. Relatively few judgments were recorded as rather uncertain or very uncertain. We cannot, of course, assume that the raters were always entirely frank, nor that their judgments were uninfluenced by the knowledge that the children of the gifted group had made high scores on an intelligence test. However, the ratings made by parents and teachers agree in so many respects as to indicate either considerable validity for both, or the operation of similar constant errors for both. Mean ratings by age, sex, and intelligence. Ratings were scored 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on to 13, 1 being the highest possible rating, 7 average for age, and 13 the lowest possible. Figure 31, page 532 FF, gives, for each trait, the line of mean rating by age. The means of gifted children below the age of 6 years are omitted, because of the small numbers on which they were based. In these figures, a line of X's equals the parent's rating of gifted, dotted line equals teacher's rating of gifted, and straight line teacher's ratings of control. Figure 31 brings out a number of interesting facts. It will be seen that the gifted subjects are rated higher than the control on all the traits except mechanical ingenuity, in which trait the advantage is slightly with the control group. The superiority of the gifted is very great in general intelligence, originality, desire to know, common sense of humor, and desire to excel, rather marked in conscientiousness, truthfulness, self-confidence, willpower, and leadership, and in the other traits rather small or irregular. In fondness for large groups, freedom from vanity or egotism, and mechanical ingenuity, the differences are much too small to be significant. The probable errors of the differences shown vary from age to age, but range chiefly between 0.20 and 0.40 of a score unit. Parents and teachers' ratings show considerable agreement. The parents rate probably higher than the teachers on appreciation of beauty, sense of humor, and sympathy, somewhat higher on health, physical energy, fondness for large groups, leadership, popularity, generosity, desire to know, and originality, and lower on prudence and permanence of moods. Parents and teachers rate about equally high on self-confidence, willpower, musical appreciation, cheerfulness, sensitiveness to approval, disapproval, desire to excel, vanity, conscientiousness, truthfulness, mechanical ingenuity, common sense, and general intelligence. Both by parents and teachers, the girls are rated a little higher than boys on many of the traits, on musical appreciation and appreciation of beauty, especially to a large extent on health, fondness for large groups, popularity, and desire to excel. As would be expected, they are rated lower than boys on mechanical ingenuity. Not many of the traits show consistent age trends, although the curves for boys, more often than those for girls, show a downward slope with increasing age. The standard deviations were computed separately for each age group and were found to run remarkably uniform. Mean ratings for ages combined. Inasmuch as the ratings are so little influenced by age, it is permissible to compare mean ratings for the ages combined. Table 191 gives both the means and the standard deviations for the combined ages. Table 191 is displayed on the page. Means and standard deviations of trait ratings for ages combined. The number of cases in each group in Table 191 is large, 250 to 350, and the probable errors of the differences correspondingly small, usually between 0.08 and 0.12 of a score unit. Accordingly, a difference of 0.30 between two means in Table 191 would ordinarily be 2 or 3 times the probable error of the difference. The classification of traits. The rather high reliability of the means makes possible instructive comparisons of the traits when they are classified by groups as physical, intellectual, social, moral, volitional, emotional, and special ability traits. Such comparisons may be readily made in Figure 32. In this figure, the mean ratings for boys are shown on the left, those for girls on the right. For each sex, the middle vertical scale shows the teacher's ratings of the control group, the left-hand scale shows teacher's ratings of gifted, and the right-hand scale parents' ratings of gifted. Figure 32 is displayed on the page. Mean trait ratings, ages combined. Figure 32 shows that the traits classed together behave, on the whole, rather similarly. Teachers and parents are seen to agree strikingly with respect to the traits in which the gifted excel, and also with respect to the relative degrees of superiority shown by the different classes of traits. The order of superiority in the judgment of both is 1. Intellectual traits, 2. Volitional, 3. Emotional, 4. Moral, 5. Physical, 6. Social. In some cases, the data have suggested the appropriate classification of a trait. Thus common sense, which one might be inclined to group with the social traits, behaves more like the intellectual traits, and is therefore being classed with these. For similar reasons, self-confidence has been classified with the volitional rather than with the social traits, and sense of humor with the emotional rather than the intellectual. Perhaps sympathy, tenderness, and generosity, unselfishness might with equal justification have been classed with either the moral or the social traits. We have placed them with the moral. The similar behavior of the traits of a given class seems to justify deriving a composite rating for all of the traits of each class, omitting musical appreciation, appreciation of beauty, and mechanical ingenuity. Table 192 gives the means and standard deviations of the combined ratings on the traits of each of these classes. Table 192 is displayed on the page, mean ratings and standard deviations for each class of traits. The following percents of the gifted teachers' ratings exceed the mean of the control group of corresponding sex. Intellectual traits, boys 92%, girls 89%. Volitional traits, boys 81%, girls 82%. Emotional traits, boys 68%, girls 68%. Moral traits, boys 65%, girls 59%. Physical traits, boys 58%, girls 64%. Social traits, boys 58%, girls 59%. Figure 33 gives the means for each class of traits by age. Figure 33 is displayed on the page, age means for each class of traits. Figure 33 shows that parents rate consistently higher than teachers on the physical, moral, and social traits, and slightly higher on the intellectual traits. On the volitional and emotional traits, parents and teachers agree very closely. The mean ratings of girls increase with age in the case of volitional and moral traits, and do not decrease with age in the case of any of the traits. Ratings of boys on volitional and physical traits tend to decrease slightly with age. Influence of the generosity factor in trait ratings. There is little doubt that the unselected subjects of the control group, if they had in all cases been correctly rated, would have yielded a mean of approximately 7, or average for age, on the rating plan. It is seen in Table 191, however, that the control boys are rated above 7 on every trait except prudence, and control girls above 7 on every trait except mechanical ingenuity. The highest mean for both sexes of the control group is on cheerfulness and optimism, 5.57 for boys and 5.31 for girls. Each of these means is about 1 standard deviation higher than it ought to be, and for several other traits, the mean is displaced upward by 1/2 standard deviation or more. We may term this constant influence the generosity factor. It may be a special instance of halo effect due in this case to the natural affection of the teachers for their pupils and of the parents of their offspring. There is little doubt that we always tend to overrate those we like, the tendency being stronger in the case of some traits than others. When we are rating those we dislike, the generosity factor probably operates negatively. The relative influence of the generosity factor on the mean ratings for various traits is strikingly shown on the middle vertical line throughout Figure 32. In the case of the intellectual traits, the influence is lacking for originality and is only moderately large for the other traits. Turning to the volitional traits, we see that the factor does not enter into the ratings of boys on prudence, but is very large on the ratings of girls on desire to excel. In the case of the other volitional traits, its influence is also marked, and about equal for girls and boys. The ratings of moral traits are somewhat more influenced by the generosity factor, especially in the case of girls. The outstanding fact in Figure 32 is a large influence with both sexes on ratings for cheerfulness. In the case of the social traits, the generosity factor is somewhat more evident in the ratings of girls than in those of boys, are with both sexes is entirely lacking for the trait leadership. The influence is moderate for the physical traits, but is greater for general health than for physical energy. It does not enter at all into the ratings of boys on the special ability traits, but it affects the ratings of girls considerably, although negatively in the case of mechanical ability. It is probably safe to assume that the relative influence of the generosity factor upon the various trait ratings is much the same for the gifted as for the control, although the absolute amount of influence may be greater or less. Probably for most of the traits it is greater, especially the ratings by parents. Whatever the intelligence of a group, it enters more into the ratings of girls than of boys, a fact which must be taken into account in any comparison of the sexes with respect to trait ratings or school marks. Overlapping of gifted and control on personality traits. Although comparison of gifted and control in terms of overlapping can only be justified on the assumption that the generosity factor has operated equally with both groups, an assumption which is not always in accord with the facts, nevertheless such comparisons are present in Table 193, for whatever they may be worth. Table 193 is displayed on the page, percent of gifted teachers' ratings who equal or exceed the mean of the control group of corresponding sex in trait ratings. Rank orders of the traits for the various groups. Although comparisons of absolute rating scores are to a considerable extent invalidated by the halo and generosity factors, it is still possible to ascertain from the rank order of the mean ratings in what traits the gifted are high or low as compared with their standing in the other traits. The means given in Table 191 yield the following rating orders of the traits for the various groups. Table 194. Compared with the control boys, the gifted boys are rated relatively highest in originality, desire to know, general intelligence, prudence, and willpower. They are relatively lower in fondness for large groups, freedom from vanity, and cheerfulness. The facts are much the same for the gifted girls, although with them self-confidence and sense of humor take a higher rank than with the control, and sympathy and sensitiveness to approval a lower rank. Table 194 is displayed on the page, rank orders of the traits according to mean trait ratings of the various groups. Correlations 1 and 2 show a considerable agreement between parents and teachers with respect to the traits in which the gifted group most excel the control group. Comparisons of correlations 3 and 4 shows that gifted boys resemble control boys more than gifted girls resemble control girls. From correlations 5, 6, and 7, it is seen that sex differences are more marked to the control group than in the gifted group. This is due chiefly to the fact that gifted girls diverge from the control girls in the direction of the masculine. Unevenness of ratings for the individual children. Ratings of the kind with which we are here dealing are always vitiated to a greater or less extent by the halo effect. The rater's general good or bad opinion of the subject being rated tends to colour all his judgments of that person. The effect, of course, is to reduce the variability of the ratings. Conversely, the greater the variability of the 25 ratings for a given subject, the more successful the rater has probably been in making real discriminations. In the case of our 10-year-old subjects, both gifted and control, we have computed for each child the standard deviation of the 25 ratings given by the teacher. The means of the standard deviations may be taken as an index of the amount of discrimination the teachers have exercised in their ratings, or the extent to which they have resisted the halo factor. The means and standard deviations of these standard deviations are as follows. Gifted boys, teachers, mean 2.04, standard deviation 0.52. Gifted girls, teachers, mean 2.09, standard deviation 0.62. Control boys, teachers, mean 1.48, standard deviation 0.54. Control girls, teachers, mean 1.62, standard deviation 0.54. Control girls, teachers, mean 1.62, standard deviation 0.44. Gifted boys, parents, mean 2.22, standard deviation 0.47. Gifted girls, parents, mean 2.15, standard deviation 0.38. On the whole, it appears that the ratings have been made with considerable discrimination. That the mean variability of individual ratings is greater for the gifted group than for the control group does not necessarily mean that the ratings of the gifted group are less influenced by the halo effect. The gifted child may tend, on the average, to greater unevenness with respect to the 25 traits in question. This would necessarily be the case if many of the traits were positively correlated with intelligence, but to different degrees. Since the gifted children are highly selected for intelligence, they would tend to rate considerably above the control group on those traits highly correlated with intelligence, somewhat above the control group on the traits moderately correlated with intelligence, and not at all above on the traits not correlated with intelligence. In other words, the unequal correlation of the various traits with intelligence warrants the expectation that the gifted child will be somewhat more uneven in these traits than the unselected child. The figures given above are in harmony with this expectation. Certainty of judgments. It will be recalled that each rater was asked to indicate the certainty of each judgment by undertaking one of the phrases very certain, fairly certain, rather uncertain, very uncertain. The responses were scored 1, 2, 3, or 4 respectively, and were averaged for each trait by age, sex, and intelligence group. It was expected that the younger children would be rated with much less feeling of confidence than the older. However, the average mean certainty by age for the 25 gifted traits showed only insignificant age differences. Table 195, giving mean certainties for the individual traits, ages combined, makes possible interesting comparisons of the relative difficulty experienced by parents and teachers in rating the various traits in question. The figures in parentheses give the rank orders of the traits with respect to the feeling of certainty with which they are rated. Table 195 shows that boys and girls are rated with about equal certainty. As would be expected, parents rate the gifted with more certainty than teachers rate them. This holds for every trait. The teachers rate the gifted with more certainty than they rate the control. The latter finding would indicate that the gifted child, on the average, has more positive and striking personality than the average child, or at least that the teacher feels she knows the gifted child better. Table 195 is displayed on the page, mean certainty of ratings. Traits which stand out as especially easy or difficult to rate are the following with rank orders. Easy to rate, general intelligence, desire to know, desire to excel. Difficult to rate, musical appreciation, appreciation of beauty, permanence of moods, sympathy, generosity, mechanical ingenuity. In Table 195, the rank order of certainty in the ratings of gifted is higher for parents than for teachers in the case of health, sympathy, appreciation of beauty, and sense of humour. It is lower in the case of prudence, popularity, conscientiousness, and freedom from vanity. Comparing the rank orders of certainty for teachers' ratings of gifted and control, we find that gifted children are relatively, though not absolutely, harder to rate on popularity, sensitiveness, or approval or disapproval, conscientiousness, desire to know, originality, and common sense. Comparison of Table 195 with Table 191 discloses a marked correlation between mean rating score and mean certainty for the individual traits. That is, the higher a child is rated, the greater is the indicated certainty. This holds to a much greater extent for the gifted than for the control. In rating the gifted, the tendency is, in the case of uncertainty, to rate the child down close to average. The rank order correlations between mean rating and mean certainty, rank orders of traits in tables 191 and 195 are as follows. Gifted boys, teachers, 0.755, standard deviation 0.06. Gifted girls, teachers, 0.717, standard deviation 0.07. Control boys, teachers, 0.314, standard deviation 0.13. Control girls, teachers, 0.239, standard deviation 0.13. Gifted boys, parents, 0.831, standard deviation 0.04. Gifted girls, parents, 0.796, standard deviation 0.05. These correlations would indicate that judges with more knowledge of the gifted subjects would have rated them even higher than they were rated. It may be, however, that the correlation is due to another cause. It is possible that, when the rater could not considerably rate the subject high, there was a subconscious tendency to rate the certainty of the judgment low, by way of apology, so to speak. Relative variability of the sexes in trait ratings. The relative variability of the sexes in the trait ratings, is best indicated by comparison of boys and girls of the control group in those traits which are rated with the greatest certainty of judgment. The 10 traits which in the case of the control group are rated with greatest confidence are, in order, desire to excel, freedom from vanity, popularity, sensitiveness to approval or disapproval, general intelligence, physical energy, conscientiousness, willpower and perseverance, truthfulness, and cheerfulness or optimism. For these, the Pearson coefficients of variability for ages 8 and 12 of the control group are as shown in Table 196. Table 196 is displayed on the page, Sex Variability in Trait Ratings. In the 20 comparisons, the boys are more variable in 8, the girls in 7, and in 5 there is no difference. There is here no consistent evidence of sex difference in variability. Reliability of the ratings. We have seen that parents and teachers agree fairly well in regard to the order of the traits based upon the degree of superiority of the gifted over the control. Rho equals 0.70. It is also important to know how well 2 equally competent judges would agree in rating the same children on a given trait by the method in question. A comparison of the judgments of 2 teachers on the same children would give the best answer to the question of reliability, but unfortunately such data are not available. The only comparison of this kind we are able to make, that between the ratings of parents and teachers, is rather unsatisfactory for 2 reasons. 1. Parents and teachers observe the children under very different environment. 2. Ordinarily a given parent or teacher rated only 1 child, and the standards of judgment of various raters doubtless varied greatly. Both of the factors operate to lower the true correlation. Time has not allowed us to correlate parents' and teachers' ratings of the gifted for each of the 25 traits for all the age groups. Instead, we have taken a single age group, 10-year-old boys, and correlated the mean rating by parents on each of the following groups of traits, with mean rating by teachers on the corresponding group of traits: intellectual, volitional, moral, physical, emotional, and social. This procedure is justified by the data already presented, page 539 FF, showing the similar behavior of the various traits classed in any one of these groups. The computation was not made for the miscellaneous group of special ability traits, musical appreciation, appreciation of beauty, and mechanical ingenuity, as an average rating on such traits would have little meaning. The Pearson correlations are as follows. Intellectual traits, 0.285, standard deviation, 0.08. Volitional traits, 0.278, standard deviation, 0.08. Moral traits, 0.303, standard deviation, 0.08. Physical traits, 0.324, standard deviation, 0.08. Emotional traits, 0.271, standard deviation, 0.08. Social traits, 0.178, standard deviation, 0.085. Summary. 1. Data have been reported on the ratings made by teachers and parents of nearly 600 children of the main gifted group, and on the ratings made by teachers of more than 500 unselected children composing a control group. Each child was rated by the graphical rating scale method on 25 traits, falling roughly into 7 groups: intellectual, volitional, emotional, moral, social, physical, and special ability traits. The degree of certainty felt in regard to each judgment was recorded. Means and standard deviations were computed by age, sex, and intelligence. 2. Parents and teachers were found to agree strikingly with respect to the traits in which the gifted excel. The order, according to degree of superiority of the gifted, is 1. Intellectual, 2. Volitional, 3. Emotional, 4. Moral, 5. Physical, 6. Social traits. Mechanical ingenuity is the only trait on which the control group is rated higher than the gifted group. 3. The rank order of the individual traits according to the degree of superiority of gifted over control, as shown by teachers' judgments, correlates 0.70 with that based upon parents' judgments. Parents, however, rate the gifted children on the average slightly higher than do teachers, and both parents and teachers rate girls slightly higher than boys on a majority of traits. 4. The Pearson correlation of teachers' mean ratings with parents' mean rating for the traits of a single group, intellectual, volitional, moral, social, etc., is about 0.30. 5. A constant error due to the generosity factor is evident from the fact that the mean rating of the control group on a majority of the traits is higher than a hypothetical norm designated as average for age. The displacement of the mean for this cause amounts to half a standard deviation for several of the traits, but varies greatly from trait to trait. It is considerably greater for girls than for boys. 6. That considerable discrimination was exercised by the raters is shown by the standard deviations of the 25 ratings for individual children. On the whole, more discrimination was exercised in the ratings of gifted than in those of the control group. The amount of discrimination is an inverse measure of the magnitude of halo effects. 7. The indicator certainty of rating judgments on most of the traits runs fairly high and varies little with age or sex. Parents express greater confidence in their judgments than do teachers, and teachers rate the gifted with more confidence than they rate the control. There is a positive correlation between ratings and certainty of ratings. This is much higher for the gifted than for the control. 8. Consistent sex differences with respect to variability in trait ratings are not found. End of section 19. Section 20 of Genetic Studies of Genius, Volume 1, Mental and Physical Traits of 1,000 Gifted Children, by Lewis Terman. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by Leon Harvey. Chapter 19. Summary of data on 309 gifted high school students. The data. The purpose of this chapter is to summarize some of the more important data which have been secured for a group of 309 gifted subjects located in the high school survey described in Chapter 2. These subjects belong to the group designated as Group 2. Group 2 is at the present writing composed of 378 subjects, all of whom were selected on the basis of group test scores, 370 on the Terman group test, 6 on the Army Alpha, and 2 on the National. This group may not be quite as highly selected for intelligence, nor as homogeneous as the main experimental group. It is probable that the Terman group test is more subject to the influence of schooling, environment, and previous acquaintance with the tests than is the Stanford Binet. Although the procedures to be used in locating and testing the subjects were laid down in considerable detail, the fact that so many high school faculties participated in the survey with but little immediate supervision necessary affects the value of the results. However, 87 of the 309 subjects were located by the regular field assistants by a uniform procedure. Although the summary here presented is confined to a few of the most important items of information secured, it will be noted that the findings are throughout in general harmony with those for the main experimental group. Effort was made to secure the following items of information for each subject of the high school group. 1. Terman group test score. 2. Score on the general information test. 3. The questionnaire test on plays, games, and amusements. 4. Record of books read during a period of 2 months. 5. Child's report on the interest blank. 6. Parents' report on the home information blank. 7. Teacher's report on the school information blank. Item 1 was secured for all, items 3 and 5 for about 90% of the group, and the remaining items for only 76%. In addition, anthropometric measurements and medical examinations were secured for about 100 cases, or a third of all. All of the above items involved the use of the same blanks as were used in connection with the main experimental group. Perhaps the blanks were as suitable for one group as for the other, but for several reasons the data which they gave are probably less accurate for the high school group than for the main group. 1. The supervision of the child's work on items 2 to 5 was not entirely uniform. 2. The teachers were probably not well acquainted with their pupils, as is the average teacher in the elementary grades. 3. Since the high school subjects are older, the memory errors of parents in reporting facts regarding early development are likely to be greater. 4. Controlled data were not available. These serious disadvantages are only in part counterbalanced by the fact that the more fully developed personality of the child of high school age makes possible greater accuracy of report on many items concerning which information was sought from parents and teachers. The medical examinations, the anthropometric measurements, and the data on plays, games, and amusements have not been summarized for this group. The data on the home blank, school blank, and interest blank have been summarized only in part. The reading interests of the group have been dealt with in Chapter 15. The data which have been analyzed agree so closely with the results set forth for the main group that it has not seemed necessary to carry the analysis further than has been done. Intellectual composition of the group. It will be recorded that the method of selection required 1. That each high school teacher nominate the brightest, second brightest, and youngest pupil in each of her classes, and 2. That all the pupils thus nominated be given a term and group test. The minimum TGT scores necessary for inclusion in the group are found on page 37. The standards of admission were based upon an examination of age distributions of TGT scores reported for more than 100 high schools throughout the country, and were intended to yield subjects who would rank within the top 1% of the general child population, or within the top 2% of the high school population. The scores earned are shown in Table 197. Table 197 is displayed on the page, term and group test scores of 309 high school pupils. Since the high school survey was completed, 48 of the subjects, chiefly of this group, have taken the Thorndike Intelligence Examination for entrance to Stanford University. Their Thorndike scores ranged from 68 to 113, with an average of 89. The average score of entering students at Stanford over a period of 2 years is 71, and only about 8% score as high as the average of those who have entered from the gifted group. The average score of 14 Stanford professors on the same test was 95. Sex proportions. The 309 subjects were distributed by age and sex as follows. A table displayed on the page comparing boys, girls, and total to the number at each age. The proportion is 64.7% boys to 35.3% girls, or in the ratio of 183 boys to 100 girls. This is to be compared with the ratio of 116 boys to 100 girls in the main experimental group. See Chapter 3. In both groups, the preponderance of boys is marked, but is far greater in the high school group and is found at every age. The excess of boys in the high school group as compared with the main experimental pre-high school group might be explained as due to one or more of the following factors. 1. Nominations in the grades below the high school were practically all made by women teachers, while roughly a third of the nominations in the high school were made by men teachers. It might be supposed that the latter would be more inclined to favor boys in their nominations. Unfortunately, the nomination blanks used in the high schools were not always returned to us with the other data, and it was impossible to determine whether a sex preference had entered into the nominations. 2. The term and group test may do injustice to the intelligence of girls. This hypothesis is contradicted by the fact that mean TGT scores of unselected girls of ages 12, 13, and 14 have been found to be about as high as those for unselected boys. 3. It may be that the excess of boys in all gifted groups is due to greater male variability. Considerable evidence could be assembled from test results in support of this hypothesis, but the findings are far from consistent. 4. It may be that the mental development of boys continues after that of girls has ceased, which, if true, could give a marked excess of gifted boys in the upper ages. This may account for the difference between high school group and main experimental group in sex ratio, although the increase by age in the ratio of boys to girls is not as regular and consistent as this hypothesis would lead one to expect. Whatever the cause, it seems that in the years of middle and latter adolescence there is a large excess of high-scoring boys. In the case of Stanford students given the Thorndike Intelligence Examination, the 99th percentile for 754 consecutive male entrants was 105.7, and for 150 consecutive female entrants, 99.7. Notwithstanding the fact that women students at Stanford, owing to the limitation of 500 in their number, are far more highly selected than the men. Only one woman tested as high as 110, while 6 men made scores ranging from 110 to 124. Book's survey of 5,748 seniors in the high schools of Indiana, based upon a test somewhat similar to the Army Alpha, also gave a significant excess of high-scoring boys, especially in the upper ages. Dr. Yates, using the Army Alpha and the Terman group test, located the 25 brightest seniors in 5 Oakland high schools. Her group yielded 15 boys and 10 girls, a ratio of 150 to 100. Geographical location of pupils. Requests for corporation were sent to all the high schools in the state, numbering at that time, autumn 1921, approximately 364. The principals of 103 agreed to cooperate and were supplied with the requisite blanks and instructions. A report was made to us by 95 schools, having a total enrollment of approximately 70,000 pupils. The schools may be grouped by counties as follows. A table is displayed on the page comparing the division to the counties included. The following countries, having a total enrollment of 6,465 high school pupils, were not surveyed. A table is displayed on the page comparing counties with the number not surveyed. Table 198 shows the comparative percentages of pupils qualifying in the various geographical divisions, and Table 199 the percent qualifying in high schools of various sizes. The figures of both these tables are affected by so many unknown factors that they are rather misleading. Table 198 is displayed on the page, percentages of gifted high school subjects by geographical location. In the first place, it cannot be assumed that the research was equally thorough in all the schools. The procedure may not always have been exactly uniform, and even apart from this, it is probable that pupils in the smaller schools stood a better chance of being discovered from the mere fact that their teachers knew them better. In some of the schools, all the pupils were tested. In others, only those nominated according to instructions. Possibly in the case of a few high schools, not all the 4 grades were covered. Finally, there are probably some inconsistencies in the reports of enrollment, according to whether part-time students were or were not included. Possibly in a few cases, 7th and 8th grade pupils of junior high schools were erroneously included in the enrollment reports. Nevertheless, the figures are given for whatever they may be worth. The totals of Table 199 do not agree with those of Table 198. This is due to the omission from Table 199 of certain schools for which the percentages were known not to be representative, owing to incompleteness of the survey or to other distributing factors. Table 199 is displayed on the page, percentages of qualifying subjects in high schools of various sizes. It will be noted that someone less than 1/2 of 1% of the pupils enrolled in these high schools qualified. According to this figure, the total enrollment of 220,000 in California high schools in 1921-22 might have yielded about 1,000 cases of the desired degree of superiority. However, we cannot safely assume that the proportion of gifted would have been the same in the schools not covered, and there is no way to estimate the number who were missed in the schools that were covered. Perhaps a liberal estimate would be that not more than 1 pupil in 100 in the high schools of California could have qualified. However, since high school students are in a group rather highly selected, it is probable that most of these 309 subjects belong to the top 1/2 of 1% of the total child population of their representative ages in California. This would make the group only a little less highly selected than the main experimental group. Ancestry. Information was given in the home blank regarding the ancestry of 241 of the 309 subjects. The data were treated as were the corresponding data for the main group. 1 unit of weight being assigned to each of the great-grandparents. The results are shown in Table 200. American in this table means descended from the old American stock, usually colonial, not clearly specified. Probably in a large majority of cases it means English. The percents are sums of the blood percent of each nationality. Table 200 is displayed on the page. Nationality origin of gifted children in the high school group. Table 201 shows the percent of subjects in the group who are represented in the various nationalities by at least one parent, one grandparent, or one great-grandparent. Table 201 is displayed on the page. Number and percent of children representing various nationalities. Figure 34 is displayed on the page. Birthplaces of parents and grandparents of high school gifted group. The above figures, like those for the main group, cannot be accurately interpreted in the absence of comparative figures for the general population. However, certain facts stand out as clearly significant. For example, in Table 200, the high percentage of English, Scotch, German, Irish, Dutch and Jewish blood, and a low percentage of Spanish and Italian. The Spanish percentage, 0.13%, is especially low in comparison with the amount of Spanish blood in the general population. No Negro blood is represented. The birthplaces of 242 subjects was stated. Of this number, exactly half were born outside of California, of whom 7 were born outside the United States. Table 202 gives the birthplaces of 482 parents and 609 grandparents. This table and accompanying map, Figure 34, are extremely interesting. These children are drawn to the main from 7 national stocks, coming originally from Northwest Europe and from the Jewish racial stock who have immigrated from Russia and Germany. Table 202 is displayed on the page, birthplaces of parents and grandparents of high school gifted group. The movement of the representatives of these stocks to California has been very rapid, and they have come 1. Direct from Europe, 2. Direct from the Northeast United States, or 3. From the Northeast United States with 1 or more stops in the Central Valley. The Latin stocks and races other than the Caucasian are for all practical purposes unrepresented. While this in no sense proves their inferiority, it renders such our hypothesis reasonable. Of parents, 409 or 86.7% were born in the United States, and of these, 388, 80.2% of all, were born outside of California. There were 22 cases in which both parents were foreign-born, and 28 in which one was foreign-born. Of grandparents, 63% were born in the United States, and 94% of the entire number outside of California. Of the grandparent couples, both members were foreign-born in 27.3% of cases, and one member in 11.4% of cases. Occupational background. For 235 children, information was obtained regarding the various occupations which the father, mother, uncles, aunts, and grandparents had followed. This information is summarized in Table 203. As would be expected, the data are less complete for uncles, aunts, and grandparents than for parents. The most common occupation of maternal relative, that of housewife, is not included in Table 203. Attention is called to the fact that the figures included for a given relative all the main occupations which that relative has followed. If account has been taken only of the last occupation followed, the showing would ordinarily have been even better than it was. The percents of Table 203 are, therefore, not percents of individuals, but percents of all occupations which have been followed. A quantitative index of the occupational background has been obtained by rating on the bar scale of occupational intelligence each occupation named. Mr. Willoughby attempted a refinement of this index by a system of weights which gave greater value to the occupation of a parent than of a grandparent or parent sib, and greater value to the present than to an early occupation of the father. Table 203 is displayed on the page, occupations followed by relatives of high school group. However, when such a system of weights was applied to a sampling of families, the resulting occupational index differed by only about 7% from that based upon all unweighted average. Accordingly, the index of occupational background used was simply the average bar ratings of all the occupations which parents, grandparents, uncles, and aunts had followed. This mean index found was 11.8 as compared with an average of 8.8 for the general population of San Francisco, Oakland, and Los Angeles. For the derivation of occupational index for general population, see Chapter 4. The average of 11.8 is slightly lower than that found for the fathers of the children of the main group, 12.77. This would be expected in view of the fact that for the high school group, the index is based upon all the occupations which have been followed by near relatives, not upon the present occupation of the father. Occupations which rate approximately the same as the average of all occupations for relatives of the high school group are stenographer, 11.7, librarian in a small library, 12.0, the graduate nurse, 12.0. Figure 35 gives a distribution of the occupational background indices for the 235 children, the index for each child being the average rating of all near relatives. It will be noted that only a single child has an occupational background index below the average bar rating of 8.8 found in Chapter 4 for the general male adult population. One may conclude that if the father of a gifted child follows a lowly occupation, the probability is that the average occupational rating of his other near relatives will be higher. That is, in such a case, the family stock is probably somewhat better than the humble occupation of the father would suggest. Figure 35 is displayed on the page, occupational background indices and bar ratings of preferred occupations. Health and physical data. Although medical examinations and anthropometric measurements were given to approximately 100 of the high school subjects, the only data here summarized are those furnished by the home blank and school blank. Health and energy ratings. Parents and teachers rated the subjects on the 25 traits named in Chapter 18, and by the same method. The ratings on general health and on physical energy are summarized in Table 204. In this case, the ratings were scored from 1 to 7, 1 being the highest rating, 7 lowest, and 4 average. The certainty of ratings was scored from 1 to 4, 1 meaning very certain, 2 fairly certain, 3 rather uncertain, and 4 very uncertain. Table 204 is displayed on the page. Health and energy ratings of high school group. That is, both parents and teachers, with a rather high degree of certainty regarding the correctness of their judgments, rate these subjects considerably above average in health and physical energy. The mean rating for the girls is appreciably higher than that for the boys on both traits. In health, only 4% were rated by the parents more than half a step below average, and only 5.5% by the teachers. In energy, the parents rate 2% this low, the teachers 7%. Age of parents at birth of child. The mean age of father at birth of child was 324, of mother 29.1. The distribution of ages is as follows. A small table displayed on the page comparing the father to the mother, to ages and mean. Duration of pregnancy. This was normal in 90% of cases. 14 or 6% of the births were reported as premature by 1/2 month or more. 8 or 3.4% were reported as overtime. Mother's health during pregnancy. Statements made on this point were converted into ratings on a 5-point scale, 1 signifying excellent, 3 average, and 5 very poor. The distribution of the ratings was as follows. Rating 1. Frequency 59. Rating 2. Frequency 107. Rating 3. Frequency 42. Rating 4. Frequency 23. Rating 5. Frequency 6. Mean 2.2. Conditions of birth. Birth was described as difficult, severe, prolonged, instrumental delivery, etc. for 55% of boys and 33% of girls. As easy for 9% of boys and 12% of girls. The more important cases of difficult birth were as follows. A list is displayed on the page with difficult birth symptoms. Birth weight. Birth weights reported ranged from 3 to 15 pounds, with an average of 8 pounds 6.4 ounces for boys and 8 pounds 3.2 ounces for girls. These figures, like those for the main group, are considerably above the average, especially the mean for girls. Infant feeding. Approximately 91% of the children were at least partially breastfed, and about 65% were exclusively breastfed for a period of 10 months or longer. These figures are even higher than those for the main group. Health during first year. Statements on this point have been converted into ratings on a 5-point scale with the following results. A table is displayed on the page comparing the rating for boys and girls to the score. Dentition, walking and talking. The mean age of appearance of first tooth was 7.3 months for boys and 7.2 months for girls. The range was from 5 to 14 months. Table 205 gives the distribution of ages for walking alone, several steps, and Table 204 for talking, short sentences. Owing to the descriptive terms used in the blank, the data of Table 205 are, unfortunately, not comparable with data which have been reported for unselected children. They are, however, comparable with the data of a main group of gifted subjects. Chapter 8. The agreement with the latter is very close. Table 205 is displayed on the page, age of walking alone, several steps, high school group, and Table 206 is displayed on the page, age of talking, short sentences, high school group. The figures for dentition agree very closely with those for the main group, but those for walking and talking are much lower for the high school group. The fact that a baby book was kept by the mother for 35% of the boys and for 32% of the girls is of interest in connection with the question of accuracy of data furnished by the home blank on this and other items of information relating to the early development of these subjects. Organic diseases reported by teachers. Information reported by the teachers on this point is probably very incomplete and inaccurate, as health records based upon examination by school physician or school nurse were available for only 40% of the boys and 71% of the girls. Few indications of imperfect health were reported, and many of these were of minor importance. In all, 20 or 8% were reported for organic defects, several of which had been outgrown. These were as follows. Heart trouble, not described, 8 cases. Heart trouble, slight or outgrown, 4 cases. Indications of lung trouble, 2 cases. Apparent recovery from tuberculosis, 1 case. Kidneys weak, 1 case. Former kidney trouble, 1 case. Stomach trouble, 2 cases. Asthma, 1 case. Symptoms of general weakness. 1 or more such symptoms were reported by the home with 13% of the boys, 14% of the girls, and 13.6% of total. By the school for 21% of boys, 19% of girls, and 20% of total. The main symptoms reported under this heading have been grouped as follows. 1. Thin, slight, underweight, etc. 4 reported by the home, 15 reported by the school. 2. Rapid growth, lack of energy, easily fatigued, low vitality, etc. 5 reported by the home, 8 reported by the school. 3. Anemia, poor appetite, indigestion, biliousness, stomach trouble, etc. 2 reported by the home, 5 reported by the school. 4. Colds, catarrh, asthma, etc. 6 reported by the home, 1 reported by the school. In addition to the symptoms listed above, the home reported 1 case of each of the following. Subnormal temperature, tonsil trouble, headaches, bad teeth. Other symptoms reported by the school included from 1 to 2 cases of each of the following. Poor color, eye trouble, legs not developed, nervous, boils, acne, overweight, imperfect recovery from injury to skull. Vision and hearing. According to school reports, 49% of the boys and 50% of the girls have had the eyes tested. School reports rate the vision as follows. A table is displayed on the page comparing the boys and girls to the ratings for vision. Of boys and girls combined, the school rates the vision of 27.9% as either somewhat defective or very poor, the home 22.3%. Of the boys with a defective vision, home reports, 90% wear glasses either part or all of the time. Of the girls with defective vision, 75%. Reports from the school agree closely with those of the home on this point. Hearing was rated by the teachers as follows. A table is displayed on the page comparing the ratings for boys and girls. Ratings on nutrition. Nutrition was rated by the parents as follows. A table is displayed on the page comparing the ratings for boys and girls. History of serious digestive trouble was reported by the parents for 15% of the boys and 16.8% of the girls. Headaches. The following data on frequency of headaches were reported by the parents. Table page displaying the comparisons of boys to girls. Respiratory troubles. Information on persistent mouth breathing was reported both by parents and teachers. Table displayed on the page comparing the parents' ratings for boys and girls to the teachers' rating for boys and girls. Both parents and teachers reported on adenoid and tonsil trouble, but the information of the teachers was evidently very incomplete, as they reported only about 2/3 as many cases as the parents. The following figures are based upon the information furnished by parents. A table is displayed on the page comparing the boys and girls' percentile ratings for tonsils. Parents report as follows on the frequency of colds. A table is displayed on the page comparing the boys' and girls' ratings. The teachers report 13.5% of the boys, 15% of the girls, or 14% of the total group is having colds frequently or very frequently. The corresponding figures for the parents' reports are almost identical, 13.6%, 15.9%, and 14.5%. Nervous symptoms. The question, is child especially nervous, was answered affirmatively by parents and teachers as follows. A table is displayed on the page comparing the ratings by its percentage by parents and teachers. The symptoms of nervousness mentioned were frequently described as slight or outgrown and belong to such types as those reported for the main group. Chapter 8. Parents report 5 boys, 3.3%, and no girls as having had a history of stuttering. All but one of these, 5 cases are described as mild. The school reports 5 boys and 3 girls, and describes 7 of the 8 cases as mild, outgrown, or occasional. Parents report 2 cases of chorea, both boys. One occurred at age 6 and was very mild, the other at 7 and was severe. Parents report a history of habitual muscular twitching for 7 boys, 4.6%, and 4 girls, 4.5%. Marked tendency to worry is reported as follows, by parents for 6% of boys and 9% of girls, by the school for 4.5% of boys and 12.5% of girls. More than half the cases of worry were ascribed to causes relating to the school. There were 3 children described as overly conscientious or as having too great desire to excel, all of whom were girls. The parents report 6 boys, 4%, and 10 girls, 11.4%, as having a history of marked fears. Most of these have been outgrown. Parents report 9 boys, 6%, and 7 girls, 8%, as having had night terrors, for the most part occasional or mild. Sleep. Only 3 boys and 2 girls were reported as not sleeping well. The boys sleep on average 9 hours and 10 minutes daily, the girls 9 hours and 15 minutes, or about a quarter of an hour above the Terman and Hocking norms for unselected children. The average time spent in bed is about 9 minutes more than this. Contagious diseases. Table 207 gives the percent reported by the parents as having had various contagious diseases and the proportion of cases described as severe. Table 207 is displayed on the page, incidence of contagious diseases in high school group. The fact that of these 242 children living in one of the most unhealthful states in the Union, 31 should have had scarlet fever, 9 diphtheria, 7 typhoid, 6 smallpox, and 3 infantile paralysis, indicates that these early preventable diseases are responsible for the loss of a considerable number of gifted individuals in the country as a whole. Accidents. Accidents of greater or less severity were reported for 47.8% of boys and 24.1% of girls. Bone fractures have been suffered by 13.6% of boys and 10% of girls. Sexual maturity. The information on this point for the girls relates to age of first menstruation as reported by the parents. The number having reached any given age who have matured before that age is as follows. A table is displayed on the page comparing the age to the numbers who have reached puberty. The above figures, like those given in Chapter 8 for the main group, indicate that intellectually gifted girls tend to mature considerably earlier, on the average, than unselected girls. The question asked parents regarding age which change of voice occurred with boys was too often misunderstood to justify a statistical summary of the replies. Educational history. School progress. The age grade status of the 309 children at the time they were located is shown in Table 208. Table 208 is displayed on the page, Age grade status of high school gifted group. Regarding children who are 14 years old, but not yet 16 as normally advanced for the 9th grade, children of 15 but not yet 17 as normally advanced for the 10th, etc., we have the following percentages of retarded, normal, and accelerated progress. Boys, 8.5% retarded, 48.5% normal, 43% accelerated, 15.5% accelerated 2 years or more. Girls, 0 retarded, 45% normal, 55% accelerated, 15% accelerated 2 years or more. Kindergarten was attended by 35% of boys and 33% of girls, the average period of kindergarten attendance for these being almost exactly a school year. 15 entered school in the 2nd grade, 7 in the 3rd, 6 in the 4th, and 3 in the 5th. The mean age of school entrance above kindergarten was 6.2 years for boys and 6.4 years for girls. One child entered the 1st grade at 4 and 25 at 5. One entered the 2nd grade and one the 3rd grade at 5. One entered the 3rd and one the 4th at 6. The detailed facts are shown in Table 209 regarding the 231 subjects for whom report was made. Table 209 is displayed on the page. Age and grade of high school gifted group on entering school. Strictly speaking, one may consider the child retarded who does not enter the 1st grade before 7, a 2nd before 8, etc. On this basis, 44 children in Table 209 were retarded on entrance. On the usual basis of figuring, which is more lenient by 1 year, only 3 were retarded. Of the 44 who, in the stricter standard, were retarded, there were 17 who at the time of this investigation had not made up any of this initial handicap. This shows the marked tendency to lockstep in the average public school. If we include initial skipping at school entrance, 68% of the boys and 73% of the girls have skipped 1 or more half grades. The boys have skipped an average of 2.8 half grades, the girls 2.4 half grades. There were 17 children who had repeated a half grade, but none who had repeated 2 half grades. According to the statements of parents, 19% of the boys and 24% of the girls have been encouraged to forge ahead. 74% of boys and 69% of girls have been allowed to take their own pace, and 7% of both boys and girls have been held back. These statements refer entirely to the attitude of the parents. 33 of the children have attended 2 schools, 63, 3, 53, 4, 55, 5, 28, 6, and 1 each 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 15. The average number of schools attended was 4.1. School attendance has been fairly regular for the large majority. The average number of days lost during the past year, based on parents' estimates, was 5.8 for boys and 8.6 for girls. For girls of ages 13, 14, and 15 combined, the average loss of time was 7.6 days. For girls of ages 16, 17, and 18 combined, 9.3. The reports indicate that this increase is probably due to mental troubles. Liking for school was rated by the parents as follows. Boys, number 152, 60% very strong, 36% fairly strong, 3% slight liking, 1% positive dislike. Girls, number 87, 70% very strong, 28% fairly strong, 2% slight liking, 0 positive dislike. The boys were devoting on an average 5.9 hours per week to the home study of school lessons at the time of the investigation, the girls 6.8 hours. The older children of both sexes were devoting about an hour a week more to home study than were the younger children. Of the boys, 53% learned to read before starting to school. Of the girls, 47.5%. 4 learned to read before the age of 4 years and 14 before 5. The number of books in the homes from which these children come ranges from 0 to 3,500 volumes, with an average of 380. There were 24 home libraries of the 1,000 volumes or more and 15 or fewer than 50. 57% of the boys and 46% of the girls had shown unusual interest in encyclopedias. 53% of the boys and 23% of the girls in atlases. 41.5% of the boys and 34% of the girls in dictionaries. Table 210 shows the number of children of the 242 for whom reports were available, who were taking private instruction in various subjects, also the parents' rating of ability shown in such instruction. It will be noted that very superior ability is shown in these special subjects by only 7 boys and 7 girls, or 6% and 7% respectively, of their number taking special instruction. Table 210 is displayed on the page. Special subjects studied and ability shown by high school group. The parents were asked to state what principles or rules guided them in regard to 1. Answering the child's questions, 2. Stimulating desire to learn, 3. Other matters they had considered important in the training of their children. On the first point, 212 answers were recorded, of which 187 were unreservedly affirmative, fully, carefully, to the best of my ability, thoughtfully, seriously, immediately, etc. The remaining were affirmative, but with some qualification. In regard to 2, stimulating desire to learn, 176 answers were received, which may be classified as follows. Yes, 49, no, 10, not necessary. Showed natural ability, was eager to learn, etc., 39. By showing pleasure at success, by commendation, encouragement, etc., 17. By exhortation on the value of knowledge, power of education, emulation of great men, etc., 12. By making work interesting, 10. By cooperating, treating as intellectual equals, etc., 8. By providing books and material, 8. By encouraging initiative and research, 7. Miscellaneous, 9. The other matters considered important, 3. Were classified by units of response rather than by individuals. For example, health and morals counted as 1 under each head. There were 186 units, which have been classified as follows. Religion, manners, morals, character, etc., 29. Health, food, clothing, sleep, etc., 25. Truthfulness, honesty, 17. Supplying and supervising books, recreation, etc., 12. Inculcating thoroughness, perseverance, etc., 11. Treating sympathetically as responsible, equal, etc., 11. Chivalry, ideals, honor, etc., 6. Social companions, activities, fair play, 4. Miscellaneous, 71. Tests of general information. Achievement tests were not given to the high school group. The omission was partly due to limitations of time and funds, but chiefly to the fact that few satisfactory standard tests were available in the high school subjects. The general information test, described in Chapter 11, was used instead. This test had a reliability of 0.95 for unselected children of the age group 14 or the age group 15, and correlates between 0.80 and 0.90 with the determined group test. The means for the separate parts of the test are shown in Table 211. As the number of girls of the various ages in the high school group is small, the sexes have been combined. Control data are available for the ages 12 and 13, see Chapter 11, and the means of those ages for the control group are placed in the parenthesis for comparison. These means are extremely high, as will be seen by comparison with the norms in parenthesis for unselected children. For example, the mean total score for the 12-year-old gifted group is above the mean for the control group at the same age by 2.31 times the standard deviation of the latter. The mean total for 13-year-old gifted is above that of the 13-year-old control group by 2.1 times the standard deviation of the latter. The mean for both the 12-year-old and the 13-year-old high school gifted groups is slightly higher than the mean for the main gifted groups of corresponding age. From Table 212, which gives the total score distributions for 12 and 13-year-olds of A, the high school gifted group, B, the main gifted group, and C, the control group, it will be seen that only one of 53 controlled children of 12 years reaches the 12-year mean for the high school gifted, and only 2 of 91 control 13-year-olds reach the 13-year mean for the high school gifted. Table 211 is displayed on the page. Mean scores on the information test by high school group. Information quotients have not been computed for the high school gifted group, but it's evident from the data which have been presented that this group ranks as far above unselected children in general information as do the children of the main experimental group. 2 of the high school gifted group obtained a perfect score in the science section of the test. The numbers were too small to afford reliable sex comparisons, but the mean showed the following tendencies. Science and nature study, boys appreciably superior. History and civics, boys slightly superior. Language and literature, girls slightly superior. Music and art, girls slightly superior. Total score, boys slightly superior. Table 212 displayed on the page, distribution of information scores of 12 and 13-year-olds gifted and control. Scholastic preferences. Determining the intellectual demands of the school subjects. The high school pupils, like those in the main group, were asked in the interest blank to rate each school subject on a scale from 1 to 5 to indicate degree of preference, also to indicate the easiest subject. Mr. Willoughby undertook to derive a scale of intelligence values of the different school subjects, analogous to the bar scale of intelligence values for occupations. That some school subjects make heavier demands upon intelligence than others will be generally agreed, but judges differ considerably in estimating the relative extent of these demands. Obviously, a scale of values based upon the estimates of many qualified judges will have greater validity than one based on the estimates of a single judge. Accordingly, estimates were secured from 25 individuals, 13 men and 12 women, including 1 private school teacher, graduate student education, 3 years experience, 1 high school teacher, sophomore, 1 sophomore, no teaching experience, 2 heads of psychology departments, 1 in a Western university, the other in an Eastern women's college, 1 private school teacher of classics, 35 years experience, 1 dean of a colored girls' seminary, 30 years experience, undergraduate in education, 2 undergraduates in education, selected by the latter, 1 high school teacher, experience unknown, undergraduate in education, 1 college school and army teacher, 5 years experience, undergraduate in education, 1 undergraduate in education, selected by the latter, 1 college ex-president, director of a Bureau of Economic Research, 1 university professor of psychology, 4 graduates in psychology, research assistants, 1 undergraduate, research assistant, 1 high school teacher of science, about 5 years experience, 1 superintendent of schools, graduate in education, 1 college school teacher, 2 years experience, 1 high school and 1 grade school teacher, exact experience unknown but extensive, 1 university graduate, librarian. Each of the 25 judges arranged the 48 subjects in a rank order according to the demands they were believed to make upon intelligence. The usual treatment of such data has been assigned PE values directly from the rank order comparisons, according to the percent of judges who place a given subject higher or lower than another given subject. For example, according to Thorndike's table, if 80% of judges placed algebra above bookkeeping, then algebra is 1.25 PE above bookkeeping. There are objections, however, to this method. In the case of algebra and bookkeeping, for example, when the two are compared directly, algebra is 1.25 higher. But when they are compared by comparing each with a third subject, or a third and a fourth, the previously ascertained position is moved. Another difficulty of the direct comparison method is encountered in the fact that sometimes a given subject is placed above or below another given subject by 100% of the judges, in which case it is impossible to determine on the basis the PE distance between them. In view of these difficulties, the direct comparison method was abandoned in favor of the method of group comparison. First, a school subject was found which had the most nearly central position with respect to all the others. This proved to be dramatics. Next step was to ascertain the distance of each of the other subjects above or below dramatics, taking account not only of the direct comparison between dramatics and the given subject, called subject X, but also of the position of subject X with reference to other subjects which are being compared with dramatics. The steps were as follows. 1. Each subject was placed in a group composed of all the subjects with which it could be directly compared. two subjects were comparable, in the sense in which the term is here used, when the judges were not unanimous as to their relative positions. If 100% of the judges place a given subject above another given subject, there is no way to determine the PE distance between them, and they are not really comparable. This gave as many groups as there were subjects, no two groups being exactly identical. The number of subjects in a group was usually between 15 and 30. Subject X, let us say, was comparable with 20 subjects. 2. The next step was to ascertain the mean PE distance of the subjects of a given group from dramatics, the point of reference. In the case of the X group, in our illustration, the PE distance of each of the 20 subjects from dramatics was found and the mean of these distances computed. 3. Next, the distance of subject X from the mean of the X group was found. Suppose this to be minus 0.6 PE. This added algebraically to 1.8 PE gives plus 1.2, which is the best approximation of the true distance of subject X from dramatics. Carrying out this computation for all the subjects gave the PE values of Table 213. Table 213 is displayed on the page, Intellectual Demands of the School Subjects. Pupils' ratings of school subjects for preference and ease. By the use of the above scale of values, it is possible to compute the correlation between the absolute difficulty of subject and the extent to which the children like them or call them easy. Each pupil of the high school group rated from 1 to 5 according to liking the subjects which he had taken. The rating 1 meant that the subject was liked very much, 3 that it was neither liked nor disliked, 5 that it was disliked very much. Table 214 shows the percentage of 1, 3 and 5 preference ratings for each subject, also the percent of rated subjects which were checked as very easy or easiest of all, according to the instructions on the pupil's interest blanks. Table 214 is displayed on the page, Ratings of Subject for Preference and Ease. The mathematics group is by far the best liked and easiest group. Exceptionally well liked subjects in other groups are chemistry, physics, dramatics and sports. The art group is the least liked and the hardest for these children. The subjects most often disliked are penmanship, sewing, physiology and folk dancing. However, 53% of the pupils did not rate any subject as disliked very much. At the opposite extreme, there was only one pupil who rated no subject as liked very much. The correlation between the intellectual difficulty of the subjects, Willoughby scale values, and the percent of ones in the preference ratings was plus 0.138, standard deviation 0.099. The mean Willoughby scale values of the subjects checked as very easy was plus 0.67 for boys and plus 0.03 for girls. The correlation between the Willoughby scale values of the subjects and the percent checking the various subjects as very easy was minus 0.384, standard deviation 0.081. That is, the less intelligence a subject demands, according to competent judges, the harder it is for these pupils, and the less they like it. The more intelligence it demands, the easier it is, and the better they like it. After all, perhaps this is the logical expectation for pupils of such superior intellectual endowment. The relationship between the percent who rated subject 1 for preference and the percent who rated very easy can also be found from Table 214. The correlation between the second column and the fifth column is plus 0.753, standard deviation 0.044. However, this rather high correlation does not tell us whether a subject is liked by a given pupil because it is easy for him, or whether it is easy for him because he likes it. Vocational preferences. The vocational preferences were expressed on the interest blank by 196 boys and 87 girls of the high school group. The method was the same as I used with the main group. The subject was asked to mark with 2 crosses the vocation he would most like to follow, of 96 listed, and to mark with a single cross the other occupations he might like to follow. The first choices were distributed as follows. A list is displayed on the page, comparing a list of professions with boys and girls. The above preferences do not tell us what occupations these subjects will follow, but they are probably fairly good indications of the general directions in which future choices will be made. It is significant that 33.6% of the boys are looking forward to some field of engineering and 13.2% to science. Engineering and the physical sciences together account for 90 choices, or almost half. Law follows with 14 choices, writing with 12, and medicine with 10. Approximately 35% of the girls' choices go to teaching, 10% to writing, and 8% to music. The average bar scale rating of the occupational choices of the entire group is 14.63. This about corresponds to the level of a secretary or high school teacher, and is on the whole lower than the majority of the group ought to aspire. The occupations marked as possible choices cover a wide range. The boys marked on an average 3.8 occupations as possible choices, the girls 2.2. In both cases, the average bar rating of these choices is considerably below that of the first choices. Figure 35, page 570, shows the distribution of bar ratings of occupational preferences of the pupils and also the distribution of the occupations followed by near relatives. The average bar rating of A is 14.63, of B 14.1, of C 11.8. Average for the general male population of the larger California cities is 8.8, see page 70. The average for girls is lower by about 1 point than that for boys. 81 girls answered the question, do you prefer the duties of housewife to those of any other occupation? The answers, well decorated with exclamation points and underscorings, were not in the least indecisive. The no's have it, 71% to 19%. Does the boy or girl whose occupational choice rates high on the bar scale tend to prefer the school subjects which make most intellectual demands? In order to answer this question, the correlation was computed between bar scale ratings of preferred occupation and the Willoughby scale ratings of scholastic preferences. The correlation found was 0.192, which is low but perhaps significant. Summary. The chapter deals with a group of 309 gifted high school pupils located chiefly through cooperative surveys made by high school faculty throughout California. Final selection was based upon Terman group test scores earned by pupils who had been nominated by teachers. Probably most of the subjects so selected are as intelligent as the brightest in 200 taken at random. Their ages range from 12 to 21, with an average of 15 years, 3.4 months. Only a small part of the information collected for the group has been summarized. Some of the more important facts are as follows. 1. The sex ratio is 183 boys to 100 girls, as compared with 116 boys to 100 girls in the main group. It is suggested that the proportion of higher scoring girls may decrease as adulthood is approached. 2. The main group, as compared with the general population of California, has a deficiency of subjects in Latin, Negro, and Indian extraction, and an excess of Jewish blood. Immigration has been chiefly from northwestern and western Europe, through New England and New York, and thence through the northern tier of Middle West states to California. Bar scale ratings of the occupations, followed by the parents and other near relatives of this group, gave results in line with those found for the main experimental group. 3. The mean age of fathers at the time of a child's birth was 32.4, of mothers 29.1. 4. 6% of the births are said to have been premature, 3.4% over time. Average birth weight reported was 8 pounds 6.4 ounces for boys and 8 pounds 3.2 ounces for girls. 5. About 2/3 were exclusively breastfed for 10 months or longer. 6. Average age of walking and talking as reported by parents is somewhat lower for this group than for the main gifted group. 7. Health and energy ratings of the subjects by parents and teachers were in the majority of cases above average. 8. Teachers report 8% as having had more or less serious organic disease. Symptoms of general weakness were reported by the home for 13.6% of the group, by the school for 20%. 9. The school reports 23% of the boys and 33% of the girls with somewhat defective vision, and 2% of the boys and 0.5% of the girls with very poor vision. There was no case of poor or very poor hearing. 10. The nutrition of 95.8% is rated by the teachers as good or excellent, by the parents, 91%. 11. Almost one half of the group have undergone tonsillectomy and about the same number adenoidectomy. Parents and teachers report 14% as having colds frequently or very frequently. 12. Parents rate 18% as nervous, the teachers 17%. The percentages with a history of stuttering, habit spasms, chorea, excessive fears, or tendency to worry run about the same as those for the main group. That is, are not excessive. The sleep records are above the Terman and Hocking norms. 13. Among 242, there had been 31 cases of scarlet fever, 9 cases of diphtheria, 7 of typhoid, 6 of smallpox, and 3 of infantile paralysis. 14. Roughly half the boys and a quarter of the girls have suffered accidents. 15. The proportion of girls who menstruated before 11, 12, and 13 is considerably higher than for unselected girls. 16. More than 60% of the group are accelerated in school and none seriously retarded. About 70% have skipped 1 or more half grades. 1/7 of the group entered school, first, second, or third grade before the age of 6. After school entrance, there was little skipping. 17. These children like school and show a good record of attendance. The boys average nearly 7 hours a week in home study, the girls nearly 8. 18. Half the group learned to read before starting to school, and 14 before 5 years. As in the case of the main group, there have been an excessive amount of interest in dictionaries, atlases, and encyclopedias. 19. The average number of books reported in the home library was 380. 20. The parents of these children have been gifted, in general, by the same educational principles as the parents of the main group. There have been few, if any, attempts at prodigy making, but effort has been made to satisfy the child's natural intellectual curiosity and to hold up suitable standards of school performance. 21. In the absence of a satisfactory battery of achievement tests, a general information test was given, including items in nature study and science, language and literature, history and civics, and the arts. The superiority of the group in this test is about as great as the superiority in the term group test. 22. By modification of Cattell's order of merit method, a scale was derived for the rating of school subjects according to the demands they made upon general intelligence. A negative correlation of -0.38 was found between the intelligence demands of a school subject and the frequency with which it was found easy by the pupils. On the other hand, the correlation between preferred subjects and subjects found easy was +0.75. Such subjects as mathematics, physics, chemistry, and modern languages were especially liked and rated easy. The manual and art subjects were least liked and least often rated as easy. 23. Nearly half the boys are looking forward either to engineering or to science. More than a third of the girls expect to teach. The large majority of the occupational choices of both sexes fall in the professional group. 24. The results for this group are of value chiefly as confirming in almost every detail the results for the main experimental group. What has been found for both of these groups will doubtless be found to hold for any gifted group similarly selected. End of section 20. Section 21 of Genetic Studies of Genius, Volume 1, Mental and Physical Traits of 1,000 Gifted Children, by Lewis Terman. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information on a volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org, recorded by Leon Harvey. Chapter 20. 2 years after. The majority of the gifted children whom this report concerns were located during the school year 1921-22. 2 years later, about the middle of the school year 1923-24, blanks were sent out for the first follow-up report. A blank was first sent to the parents, and after this had been returned with the information called for, another blank was sent to the child's teacher. The latter blank could not be sent until the parent's blank had been returned, giving the name of the teacher and of the school where the child was attending. Both blanks are reproduced in full in the following pages. A form is displayed on the page. Annual report from parents. Another form is displayed on the following page. Annual report from school. Home reports were received for 1,069 children of the various gifted groups, and school reports for 757. Of these, 570 home reports and 464 school reports were for the main experimental group. Home reports were received before September 1, 1924, for approximately 90% of the main group of 643 cases, and school reports for approximately 75% of the main group who were attending school. The latter number is smaller than the former, partially because some of the children were not in school, and largely for the reason why so many home blanks were not returned until the end, or near the end, of the school year. The distribution of ages at the time the reports were made is shown in Table 215. Not all of the information contained in the follow-up reports for these children has been summarized. This chapter presents only the material relating to school progress and to the testimony of parents and teachers regarding the attitude towards school, quality of school work, and changes in interests, social traits, and character traits, and most of the information summarized relates only to the main experimental group. The findings, based as they are upon questionnaire material, should on many points be taken as suggestive rather than conclusive. Our files contain a large amount of miscellaneous information of semi-clinical nature on the latter development of individual children. Some of this possesses extreme interest, but the time has not yet come to attempt a summary of it. The present report is accordingly limited to the analysis of certain data for a relatively unselected group. Table 215 is displayed on the page. Gifted children reported in first follow-up. Age grade status in 1924. The age grade location of those reported at the time the reports were made is shown in tables 216 to 221. Of the main experimental group, 9 boys and 8 girls were not in school, and 1 boy was in college. Of the miscellaneous group, 31 boys and 14 girls were not in school, and 72 boys and 28 girls were in college. Data on grade location have not been obtained for those attending college. Considering the 542 cases of Table 220, main experimental group, with the 337 cases of Table 221, miscellaneous group, and counting a child normal in progress who is in the first grade and is 6 or 7 years old, but not yet 8, etc., we have the percentage of retarded, normal, and accelerated given below. A small table is displayed on the page, listing the main group, miscellaneous group, and groups combined compared with retarded, normal, accelerated, and total. Comparing the grade status of the entire main group in 1924 with that in 1921 to 22, see pages 254, we find that the proportion of children accelerated has not materially changed. Of the 879 children reported in the main and miscellaneous groups combined, 1924, only 683 were accelerated and only 3 retarded, one of the latter being a special ability case. On the following pages, Table 216, Table 217, Table 218, Table 219, Table 220, Table 221 are displayed on the following pages. Only the school progress of the children in the main gifted group has been analysed in detail. Even for this group the data are not complete, owing to the fact that the reports for about 100 children were mislaid shortly after the tabulation results began and were not located until it was too late to include them in all the summary tables. The effect of this is merely to reduce the size of the sampling. There is no likelihood that any important conclusions would have been different had the loss of the data not occurred. School progress in reference to recommended promotions. It will be recalled that in the school information blank, filled out by teachers at the time the children were located, the teacher was in each case asked to state whether, in her judgment, the child could do the work of a higher grade if given immediate promotion. See page 265. In the analysis of the follow-up reports, the later school progress of those for whom promotion was deemed feasible has been compared with that for whom promotion was not thought feasible. The results are shown in Table 222, from which it will be seen that there is very little correlation between the amount of extra promotion deemed feasible in 1921 and 22 and the progress which has since been made. Table 222 is displayed on the page. Later progress compared with the amount of extra promotion deemed feasible in 1921 to 22. Table 223 is displayed on the following page. The facts embodied in Tables 222 and 223 may perhaps be more readily grasped from the statements which follow. Category 1, 139 cases not recommended for extra promotion in 1921-22. Of these, 5, 3.6%, have since made less than normal progress. 93, 66.9%, have made normal progress. 41, 29.5%, have skipped one or more half grades. Of the 41 in this category who have skipped since 1921 to 22, 23, 56.1% of the group are now recommended for additional promotion of 1 and 3 half grades. Of the 98 in this category who have not skipped, extra promotion is now recommended for 45, 45.9% of the group. Category 2, 198 cases recommended for 1 extra promotion in 1921 to 22. Of these, 7, 3.5%, have since made less than normal progress. 114, 57.6%, have made normal progress. 76, 38.4%, have skipped 1 or more half grades. Of the 76 cases in this category who have skipped since 1921 to 22, additional promotion of from 1 to 5 half grades is now recommended for 39, 51.3%. Of the 122 cases in this category who have not skipped, extra promotion of 1 to 2 half grades is now recommended for 57, 46.7%. Category 3, 83 cases for whom 2 extra promotions were recommended in 1921-22. Of these, none has made less than normal progress. 47, 56.6% have made normal progress, and 36, 43.4% have skipped 1 or more half grades. Of the 36 who have skipped, additional promotion is now recommended for 21, 58.3%. Of the 47 who have not skipped, additional promotion is now recommended for 25, 53.2%. Category 4, 25 cases for whom 3 or more extra promotions were recommended in 1921 to 22. Of these, none has made less than normal progress. 15, 60% have made normal progress, and 10, 40% have skipped 1 or more half grades. Of the 10 who have skipped, additional promotion of 1 to 2 half grades is now recommended for 6, 60%. Of the 15 who have not skipped, additional promotion of 1 to 2 half grades is now recommended for 9, 60%. Of the 445 children who enter into tables 222 and 293, 163, 36.6%, skipped at least 1 half grade between 1921, 22, and 1924, and 37, 8.3%, skipped 2 or more half grades. 1 boy of IQ 168 skipped half grades and is now, at the age of 9 years, in the 7th grade. In 8 cases, regular progress has been made in spite of absence from school for a half year or more. Notwithstanding this record of extra progress, the teachers now recommend 221, 49.6%, for still further advancement. It is especially significant that such additional advancement is more frequently recommended for children who have skipped during the 2-year period than for those who have not. Of the 445 children, 4 have missed promotions twice and 8 once. This does not necessarily mean that grades have been repeated by these children. In 6 of the 12 cases, the child who was out of school for at least half the term because of illness or travelling. In 1 case, the child had been placed in a special school for the correction of speech defect. In 5 of the 12 cases, the teacher now recommends the child for extra promotion. It is evident from the data presented in the preceding paragraphs that such extra promotions as have been granted to these children have been bestowed in a very haphazard fashion and have borne little relation to the probable merits of the particular case. School progress and scholarship rating. In the attempt to ascertain the effect of extra progress on scholarship, difficulty was encountered from the fact that in 1921-22, teachers were asked to rate scholarship in each school subject on a scale of 1 to 7, with 4 as average, and in 1924 on a scale of 1 to 5 with 3 as average, making the judgments better, same, and worse. On the second rating, 5-point scale, as compared with the earlier ratings, 7-point scale, scholarship was recorded as same when A. Child having 1 on second report had 1 or 2 on first, B. Child having 2 on second report had 2 or 3 on first, C. Child having 3 on second report had 4 on first, D. Child having 4 on second report had 5 or 6 on first, E. Child having 5 on second report had 6 or 7 on first. It would have been better had the two scholarship ratings been made on the same scale. However, the fact that they were not is not very serious, since our present purpose is to compare the scholarship ratings of those who have made extra progress since 1921-22 with those who have not. The most important facts brought out by the comparison are presented in Table 224. It is seen, Table 224, that the pupils who have skipped since 1921-22 have gained in scholarship rating more often than those who have not skipped. Also that of the pupils who have skipped, scholarship improvement has occurred about as frequently among those who were not recommended for extra promotion in 1921-22 as for those who were. The inference is that even more extra promotions could have been granted without injury to the scholarship record of these children. The fact that somewhat more pupils have lower ratings in 1924 compared with 1921-22 than higher is probably due to two facts. 1. Many are now in the upper grades or the high school, where competition is more severe. 2. The 1921-22 ratings were made by a teacher who had, in a majority of cases, nominated the child as one of the 3 brightest in her class. That is, the 1921-22 teacher was a little more likely than the 1924 teacher to be biased in the child's favor. Table 224 is displayed on the page. Effect of extra promotion upon scholarship. In the home report of 1924, parents were asked to state whether the child was gaining, holding his own, or losing in general ability. See item 2.6, page 598. The answers distributed as follows. A small table is displayed on the page comparing boys, girls and total to the number, the gain in percent, no change and loss in percent. The opinion of a parent on such a matter, of course, has little value in any individual case, but it is probably significant that, for the group as a whole, loss in general ability has evidenced itself so rarely and gains so frequently. School progress in relation to liking for school. Liking for school was rated by parents in the Home Information Blank, 1921-22, and again in the Home Report of 1924, on the same scale as very strong, fairly strong, slight liking, positive dislike. The Home Reports of 1924 are summarized in the following figures. A table is displayed on the page comparing those who have skipped in the last 2 years for boys and girls, and the percentages for their liking to school. The liking for school in 1924 has been compared, pupil by pupil, with that 2 years earlier. The following figures give the results separately for the extra progress group and for the group that had made no extra progress. A table is displayed on the page comparing boys, girls and total to the percentages of their liking for school. That is, the children who did not make extra progress between 1921-22 and 1924 have, as a group, not changed with respect to their liking for school, while those who received extra promotions have somewhat more often changed in the direction of less liking. The reasons for this tendency are not brought out in the data at hand, but the findings may be interpreted as an arrangement in favor of dealing with such children by the formation of special classes rather than by extra promotions. School progress and social adaptability. Item 2.7 in the School Report of 1924 calls for a rating on social adaptability on a 5-point scale as very superior, superior, average, inferior, or very inferior. The results tabulated separately for those who have and for those who have not skipped since 1921 to 22 are given in Table 225. Table 225 is displayed on the page Social Adaptability as related to school progress. The mean rating on social adaptability is almost exactly the same for the two progress groups. However, this can hardly be taken as proof that extra promotion has no unfavorable effect upon social adaptability. It is possible that the children who were somewhat better endowed in this trait were more likely to secure an extra promotion. Most of the acceleration present in this group occurred before 1921 to 22. We have compared those who are accelerated with those making normal progress in regard to the percent rated superior, average, or inferior in social adaptability. The number of retarded is too small to yield percents of value. The difference shown in the following figures for the accelerated and normal progress group are hardly significant. A small table is displayed on the page comparing the accelerated and normal progress to the percentages for rating on social adaptability. Further evidence on this point was obtained by examining the ratings on social adaptability, Home Report 1924, of 55 boys and 68 girls who were highly accelerated. The mean amount of acceleration for these was 2.6 years for boys and 2.4 years for girls. The mean age 11.8 years and 11.5 years. The mean IQ 157 and 155. The results were as follows. Small table displayed on the page comparing the teachers' ratings of social adaptability in 1924 between boys and girls. In the school report in 1924, teachers also rated the amount of play of each child as very much, average amount, little. The results follow. A small table displayed on the page, teachers' ratings of amount of play, 1924. The highly accelerated children, both boys and girls, are more likely than the less accelerated group to be rated as below average on amount of play. It is quite probable that this tendency of the figures is in accord with the facts, as a child who is 3 or 4 years accelerated in school finds it very difficult to enter into the plays and games of his classmates. Case records on social adaptability and play are summarized below for the 16 boys and 12 girls who were accelerated 3 years or more. Boy, age 11-5, grade 9H, IQ 164. Social adaptability average, plays with other children average amount, play interest normal, schoolwork very superior, health excellent, not nervous, social ratings by teacher 2 years ago, average or slightly below, liking for school fairly strong. Boy, aged 12 to 11, grade 10H, IQ 169. Social adaptability average, plays with other children very much, play interest normal, schoolwork very superior, health excellent, not nervous, social ratings by teacher 2 years ago, average or slightly below, liking for school very strong. Boy, age 11-5, grade 9L, IQ 159, social adaptability average, plays with other children average amount, schoolwork superior, health good, not nervous, social ratings by teacher 2 years ago, average or slightly below. Teacher now comments, he is much smaller and seems so much younger than other members of his class that he has very little in common with them. Liking for school fairly strong. Boy, aged 9-9, grade 7H, IQ 170. Social adaptability average, plays with other children average amount, play interest normal, schoolwork very superior, health good, not nervous, social ratings by teacher 2 years ago, average or better. Boy, age 12 to 8, grade 10H, IQ 150. Social adaptability average, no data on play, schoolwork excellent, health good, not nervous, social ratings by teacher 2 years ago, slightly below average, liking for school very strong. Boy, age 12-6, grade 10H, IQ 141. Social adaptability inferior, plays with other children little, schoolwork superior, health fair, not nervous, social ratings by teacher 2 years ago, average or slightly above. Teacher now comments, small and frail, not able to mix with more active boys in hereditary sports, liking for school fairly strong. Boy, age 12-4, grade 10L, IQ 165. Social adaptability average, plays average amount with other children. Play interest normal, schoolwork superior, health good, not nervous. Social ratings by teacher 2 years ago, low average. Liking for school fairly strong. Boy, age 12-4, grade 9H, IQ 154. No information on social adaptability or play interests. Schoolwork very superior, health excellent, not nervous. Social ratings by teacher 2 years ago, decidedly above average, except fondness for large groups decidedly below average. Liking for school very strong. Boy, age 12-6, grade 10L, IQ 140. Social adaptability superior, plays with other children, average amount. Play interest normal, schoolwork superior, health good, not nervous. Social ratings by teacher 2 years ago, above average. Liking for school very strong. Boy, age 10-6, grade 8L, IQ 161. Social adaptability average, plays with other children, average amount. Play interest normal, schoolwork superior, health excellent, not nervous. Social ratings by teacher 2 years ago, above average. Liking for school very strong. Boy, aged 13-0, grade 10H, IQ 164. Social adaptability average, plays with other children little. Play interest below normal, schoolwork superior, health fair, nervous, stammers at times. Social ratings by teacher 2 years ago, decidedly above average. Liking for school slight. Boy, aged 8-4, grade 5H, IQ 148. Social adaptability average, plays with other children average amount. Play interest normal, schoolwork very superior. Health excellent, non-nervous. Social ratings by teacher 2 years ago were fondness for large groups below average. Leadership decidedly below average. Popularity average. Liking for school fairly strong. Boy, age 10-8, grade 8L, IQ 148. Social adaptability average. No data on play. Schoolwork average. Health excellent, not nervous. Social ratings by teacher 2 years ago were fondness for large groups decidedly above average. Leadership below average. Popularity average. Liking for school fairly strong. Boy, age 13-5, grade 10H. IQ 150. Social adaptability average. Plays with other children average amount. Play interest normal. Schoolwork average. Health good, not nervous. Social ratings by teacher 2 years ago, slightly above to slightly below average. Liking for school very strong. Boy, age 13-4, grade 10H, IQ 182. Social adaptability average. No data on play, schoolwork very superior. Health fair. No information on nervousness. Social ratings by teacher 2 years ago, decidedly above average. Liking for school very strong. Boy, age 12-6, grade 10L, IQ 150. Social adaptability average, plays with other children, average amount. No information on play interests. Schoolwork average, health good, not nervous. Social ratings by teacher 2 years ago, average. Liking for school not reported. Girl, age 11-5, grade 9L, IQ 142. Social adaptability average. No play information. Schoolwork very superior. Health good, not nervous. Social ratings by teacher 2 years ago, above average. Liking for school very strong. Girl, age 12-5, grade 10L, IQ 151. Social adaptability average. Plays with other children average amount. Play interests normal. Schoolwork superior. Health good, not nervous. Social ratings by teacher 2 years ago, average or above. Liking for school fairly strong. Girl, age 11-11, grade 9H, IQ 173, social adaptability superior. Plays with other children not stated. Play interest normal. Schoolwork superior. Health good, not nervous. Social ratings by teacher 2 years ago, average or above. Liking for school fairly strong. Girl, age 9-11, grade 7L, IQ 172. Social adaptability average. Plays with other children average amount. Play interest normal. Schoolwork superior. Health good, not nervous. Social ratings by teacher 2 years ago, average or above. liking for school very strong. Girl, age 10-8, grade 8L, IQ 148, social adaptability average, plays with other children very much, play interest normal, schoolwork average, health excellent, not nervous, social ratings by teacher 2 years ago, average, liking for school slight. Girl aged 10-11, grade 8L, IQ 186, social adaptability very superior, plays with other children very much, play interest normal, schoolwork superior, health good, nervous at times, blinking of eyes, restlessness, social ratings by teacher 2 years ago, average or above, liking for school fairly strong. Girl aged 11-8, grade 9L, IQ 159, social adaptability average, plays with other children little. She evidently has trouble with her heart. This turns her interest away from energetic children and puts it in reading. Schoolwork superior, health good, not nervous. Social ratings by teacher 2 years ago, slightly below average. Liking for school very strong. Girl aged 10-5, grade 7H, IQ 137. Social adaptability average. Plays with the children very much. Play interest normal. Schoolwork superior. Health excellent, not nervous. Social ratings by teacher 2 years ago above average. Liking for school very strong. Girl aged 10-7, grade 8L, IQ 164. Social adaptability average. Plays with the children average amount. Play interest normal. Schoolwork not rated. Health good, not nervous. Social ratings by teacher 2 years ago above average. Liking for school very strong. Girl aged 8-5, grade 5H, IQ 192. Social adaptability average. Plays with the children average amount. Play interest normal. Schoolwork average. Health excellent, not nervous. Social ratings by teacher 2 years ago, average or better. Liking for school strong. Girl aged 8-4, grade 5H, IQ 167. Social adaptability average. Plays with the children average amount. Play interest normal. Schoolwork not rated. Health fair, nervous. Runs comb through hair when reciting. Social ratings by teacher 2 years ago, average. Liking for school very strong. Girl aged 11-7, grade 9L, IQ 143. Social adaptability average. Plays with the children average amount. Play interest normal. Schoolwork not rated. Health excellent, not nervous. Social ratings by teacher 2 years ago, high average to very superior. Liking for school very strong. Deportment, application and nervousness in relation to school progress. Both in 1921-22 and in 1924, teachers rated deportment and application, each separately as excellent, good, fair, poor, or very poor. At both dates they also answered the question, is a child especially nervous? The responses for each child in 1924 have been compared with the responses for the same child in 1921-22, and the comparison has been recorded as better, same, or worse. The results are given in Table 226 separately for the children who have received extra promotions since 1921-22 and for those who have not. Table 226 is displayed on the page, Deportment, Application and Nervousness in Relation to School Progress. The following statements are justified. 1. The deportment of both the skipping and the non-skipping group, boys and girls, showed a decided tendency toward improvement. There is more marked with the group which skipped. 2. Application in the case of both boys and girls showed a marked tendency toward improvement in the group which skipped. There was no improvement in the group which did not skip. 3. In regard to nervousness, there was a slight change in the direction of worse, except in the case of girls who did not skip. However, the numbers showing change in nervousness are too small to be reliable. The 1921-22 ratings in deportment and application were correlated in those in 1924. In practically all cases, the second ratings were given by teachers other than those who made the first ones, and without knowledge of what the first ratings had been. For deportment and correlation was 0.387, standard deviation 0.038 for boys, and 0.378 standard deviation 0.042 for girls. For application, .347 standard deviation, .040 for boys, and .251 standard deviation, .047 for girls. Health was also rated in both blanks as excellent, good, fair, poor, or very poor. The correlation between the 1921-22 and the 1924 ratings in this case was .238 standard deviation, .040 for boys, and .272 standard deviation, .045 for girls. Changes in responsiveness to discipline. The school information blank of 1921-22 and the school report blank of 1924 both contain the following question. Does child respond well to discipline? If not, explain. In tabulating the results, such answers as yes, very well, always, excellently, etc. were recorded as satisfactory. Qualified affirmative answers such as fairly well, yes except for occasional periods of sulkiness, etc. were recorded as not entirely satisfactory. No cases of incorrigibility or serious troublesomeness were reported in the main experimental group. The responses for 1921-22 and 1924 have been classified as follows. A small table displayed on the page comparing boys and girls, 2 cases included in each report, satisfactory response and not entirely satisfactory. There are 288 boys and 187 girls who appear in both the 1921-22 and the 1924 reports. Table 227 shows a number of classifications in 1924 which were different from those of 1922 and the direction of change. Table 227 is displayed on the page, responsiveness to discipline, 1921-22 and 1924. In other words, of 211 boys classified as satisfactory in 1921-22, 24 are now classified as not entirely satisfactory. Of 180 satisfactory girls, 15 are now not entirely satisfactory. On the other hand, 10 out of 17 boys and 6 out of 7 girls classified as not entirely satisfactory in 1921-22 are now classified as satisfactory. The 7 boys and 1 girl who in both reports were classified as not entirely satisfactory are described below. Boy, age 11-2, grade 7L, IQ 142. In 1921-22 report. Response to discipline fairly well. Deportment average. Application average. Fondness for large groups rather above average. Leadership rather below average. Popularity average. In 1924 report, he seems to bother some of his teachers very much on account of inattentiveness. Deportment fair. Application poor. Social adaptability average. On personal tests, overstates, but not more than average. Social attitude similar to average. Reliability in face of temptation equal to average. Emotional stability average. Boy age 12-8, grade 8H, IQ 150. In 1921-22 report, he likes his own way. Deportment average. Application high average. Social traits below average. In 1924 report, response to discipline fairly well. He seems to resent somewhat criticism of his deportment and sometimes sulks a little. Deportment good. Application fair. Social adaptability average. On personality tests, estimates his knowledge accurately. Social attitude similar to average. Reliability in face of temptation equal to average. Emotional stability average. Boy age 11-7, grade 7H, IQ 144. In 1921-22 report, question regarding response to discipline answered no. Deportment inferior. Application inferior. Social traits decidedly above average, except popularity, which is rather above average. In 1924 report, he has not been disagreeable because of discipline, but he does not improve as much as one would wish. Deportment fair. Application not rated. Social adaptability average. On personality tests, estimate his knowledge accurately. Social attitude very desirable. Reliability in face of temptation more than average. Emotionally well balanced. Boy aged 12-10, grade 8L, IQ 141. In 1921-22 report, must be appealed to personally. Will not act with the group. Likes to feel responsibility but cannot carry it. Deportment average. application average, social traits below average. In 1924 report, resents discipline, passive indifference, deportment fair, application poor, social adaptability inferior. On personality tests, estimates his knowledge accurately, social attitude similar to average, reliability in face of temptation equal to average, emotional stability average. Boy, age 13-5, grade 9L, IQ 141. In 1921-22 report, responds to discipline fairly well, deportment average, application high average, social traits above average. In 1924 report, at times is stubborn and independent. Usually tries to make amends as soon as he thinks it over. Deportment fair, application fair, social adaptability inferior. On personality tests, overstates but not more than average. Social attitude similar to average. Reliability in face of temptation equal to average. Emotional stability average. Boy, age 13-2, grade 8H, IQ 151. In 1921-22 report, has a very decided habit of interrupting anyone speaking and is slow in responding to commands. Deportment not rated. Application very inferior. Social traits average, except fondness for large groups below average. In 1924 report, he is never at fault. He has an alibi for all his deeds and his conduct. Deportment poor. Application poor. Social adaptability inferior. On personality tests, shows a marked tendency to overstate. Social attitude similar to average. Reliability in face of temptation equal to average. Emotional stability average. Boy, age 14-3, grade 10H, IQ 136. In 1921-22 report, question and response to discipline answered. No, has his own way at home, from infancy apparently. Deportment average, application superior. Invariably avoids large groups, neither leads nor follows. Popularity average. In 1924 report, has peculiar social ideal, will not mind mother. Minds a teacher that insists on good behavior. Resents correction until he is convinced that further delay will result in punishment. Deportment poor, application poor, social adaptability average. On personality tests, shows a marked tendency to overstate. Social attitude similar to average. Reliability in face of temptation more than average. Emotionally well balanced. Girl, age 11-7, grade 8H, IQ 151. 1921-22 report, she likes to have her own way and will try a person out. But when she minds, she soon becomes cheerful and her grouch is soon gone. Deportment, low average. Application average. Social traits average and above. In 1924 report, is inclined to be selfish and pouty. Deportment fair. Application good. Social adaptability average. On personality tests, overstates but not more than average. Social attitude, very desirable. Reliability in face of temptation less than average. Emotionally well balanced. The above cases are, according to the statements of their teachers, the worst incorrigibles to be found among these 415 gifted children. Change of interests and in social and character traits. Item 2.8 of the 1924 Home Report blank reads, have you observed any noteworthy changes in the child during the last 2 years with respect to the following matters? A. Interests. B. Social traits. C. Character traits. In each case, the parent is asked to describe the change. Supplementary information on these points was frequently given by parents under the following items. 2.3. How has child spent leisure time during the last year? 2.5. Has child displayed any new indications of superior intelligence since your last report? 3.3. In the remaining space, add any other facts concerning the child which you think would be of interest. All information from these three sources, which threw away any additional light on item 2.8, changes in interest and in social and character traits, was taken into account. The answers to these questions in several dozen reports were first recorded and inspected. Then a rather broad classification of interests and of social and character traits was adopted to permit a statistical summary of results. A word of explanation is necessary as to the distinction which was made between the classification, group activities, under the treatment of changes in interest, and the classification sociability under the treatment of changes in social traits. When parents reported the children as having gained or lost interest in such specific group occupations as scouting, sports, games, dancing, etc., this was recorded under the heading changes in interests. But when a gain or loss in such traits as fondness for companionship or popularity was reported, i.e., sociability without such objective ends as the group activities above, this was recorded under the heading changes in social traits. However, when tabulations were made to show the extent to which changes in interests accompanied changes in social traits, interest in group activities was included with social traits and not included with interests. Interests. Changes in interests were classified under the following heads. Group activities includes games, sports, scouting, dancing. Religious interests, church, Sunday school, and the problem of existence. Literary interests, reading, writing, journalism, and languages. Scientific interests, mechanics, chemistry, science, genealogy, collections, mathematics. Artistic interests, art, music, drama, motion pictures. Broadly social interests, includes current events, history, civics. Domestic and maternal interests, household tasks, sewing, cooking, love of young children. Miscellaneous interests, all others such as travel, schoolwork, ROTC, business enterprises, greater breadth of interests, greater maturity, etc. Gains and losses were recorded separately for boys and girls under the above categories as shown in Table 228. Table 228 is displayed on the page, gains and losses of various kinds of interests. In all but 8 cases, the changes in interests are in the direction of gain. The largest gain for both sexes is in interest in group activities, but gain in this interest is more frequent with boys than with girls. Boys show a large gain in scientific interests, girls very little. On the other hand, girls more often gain in literary and domestic interests. The normal child may expect it to show a broadening and intensification of interests as adolescence approaches. The above findings merely show that gifted children are not an exception to the rule. They do not ordinarily become blasé and lackadaisical. The data were recorded in such a way as to show what combinations of gain or loss in various interests occurred. The frequencies with which a change in one type of interest occurs alone or in combination are found in Table 229. Table 229 is displayed on the page, combinations which gain of interest occurred. In the case of boys, gain in scientific interests is least often accompanied by gain in other interests, and changes in literary and artistic ability most often. With boys, scientific interests seem to possess the greatest monopolizing power, with girls, domestic and maternal interests. The numbers are too small to show whether a gain in a given type of interest tends to be accompanied by gain in a certain peculiar type of interest rather than in some other. It is surprising that only one case was reported in which a child had gained in any interest at the expense of interest in group activities. Changes in social traits. The classification of changes was as follows. Sociability includes fondness for companions, popularity, group consciousness, etc. Social poise includes manners, politeness, social ease, grace. Care for appearance, attention to dress and person. Fondness for older company, leadership, interest in opposite sex, unsocial tendencies, includes fighting and teasing, miscellaneous. The results of Table 230 show that all but 12 of the changes which had occurred are in the direction of gain. Also that the majority of changes and gains fall under the category sociability. Table 230 is displayed on the page, gains and losses with respect to social traits. Changes in interests are related to changes in social traits. The changes in interests, not including interests in group activities, were tabulated to show whether they were accompanied by gain or loss in social traits, including interest in group activities. Table 231 is displayed on the page, changes in interest related to change in social traits. Only 3 cases were reported, all girls, in which there was a gain in interests at the expense of social traits. Of 135 children who showed a gain in interests, 72 showed also a gain in social traits, and only 3 a loss of social traits. There is no evidence of any deterioration in social tendencies as a result of increased interest in scientific, literary, artistic, domestic, and other fields. Changes in character traits. Changes reported were classified under the following categories. Responsibility includes dependability, self-reliance, judgment, moral outlook, honesty, uprightness, truthfulness, clean mind, etc. Helpfulness, consideration, thoughtfulness, etc. Sense of justice, love of fair play, recognition of obligations, etc. Tractability, responsiveness to reason, and negatively, willfulness, argumentiveness, selfishness. Self-control, control of temper, control of desires, patience, persistence and application, self-confidence, miscellaneous. The tabulated results, table 232, show 149 gains and 39 losses. Losses are reported for about 10% of the boys and for about 7% of the girls, considerably more than the proportion showing either loss in interest or in the social traits. More than half the loss in table 232 come under the category tractability. Table 232 is displayed on the page. Gains and loss with respect to character traits. Summary. 1. 2 years after the original survey, a follow-up was conducted by the use of report blanks which were sent to home and school. Home reports were received for 1,069 subjects to various groups, and school reports for 757. 2. Data on age grade status have been summarized for 542 children of the main gifted group and for 337 belonging to the other groups. No child of the main gifted group is retarded on the ARES Australia standard, and about 82% are accelerated. More than a third of the children have skipped at least one half grade in the 2-year period. 3. The gifted children who in 1921-22 were deemed by their teachers the most deserving of extra promotions have in reality skipped no more frequently since that date than the other children. 4. In 1924, additional advancement is more often recommended by the teachers for children who have skipped since 1921-22 than for those who have not. 5. Teachers' ratings on the quality of schoolwork in 1921-22 were compared with similar ratings secured in 1924. The children who have skipped during the period more often show improvement in scholarship than those who have not. 6. Of those who have skipped, some were reported by their teachers in 1921-22 as capable of doing the work of a higher grade. Others were not. The latter, nevertheless, have improved as frequently in their scholarship when granted extra promotion as have the former. 7. In the opinion of the parents, 45% of the group have gained in general ability during the 2 years and 1% have lost. 8. The group that has skipped shows, somewhat more frequently than the normal progress group, decreased fondness for school. 9. There is no correlation between the school progress which has been made and teachers' ratings on social adaptability. However, the very highly accelerated are somewhat often rated below average in social adaptability than is true of the entire group of gifted children. They're also somewhat oftener as played less than the average amount. 10. Teachers' ratings on development were higher in 1924 than in 1921-22. Improvement in deportment was more marked with the group which skipped than with the normal progress group. 11. Application improved markedly in the group which skipped, but somewhat no improvement in the normal progress group. 12. The data on relationship between nervousness ratings and skipped are not consistent. 13. Responsiveness to discipline is more often described as not entirely satisfactory in 1924 than in 1921-22. However, the worst disciplinary cases in the group studied are probably very mild in comparison with the average pupil in a parental or reform school. 14. In the 2-year period, the interests of these children have grown and become intensified. The largest gain is in interest in group activities. Boys show considerable gain in scientific interests, while girls have more often gained in literary and domestic interests. 15. The changes reported in respect to social traits are nearly all in the direction of increase in sociability, social poise, fondness for large groups, etc. There are very few cases in which there seems to have been a gain in general interest at the expense of the social traits. 16. In connection with character traits, gains are reported nearly 4 times as frequently as losses. More than half the losses have to do with tractability. 17. The data reported in this chapter are incomplete and of uneven value. Except in the case of the age grade status, the statistical summaries can be taken only as indicating the general direction in which the truth probably lies. However, even if we make considerable allowance for the unsatisfactoriness of the data, it appears that chance factors, chiefly, have operated in the matter of extra promotions, that the gifted children have not lost in educational or general ability, and that gains have far outbalanced losses with respect to such traits as social adaptability and breadth of interests. End of section 21. Section 22 of Genetic Studies of Genius, Volume 1, Mental and Physical Traits of 1,000 Gifted Children by Lewis Terman. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by Leon Harvey. Chapter 21. Conclusions and Problems. It will be recalled that the primary purpose of the investigations which have been recounted in this volume was to determine, if possible, what traits may be said to characterize children of markedly superior intellectuality. Superior intellectuality is here arbitrarily defined as ability to make a high score on such intelligence tests as the National, the Terman Group, and the Stanford Binet. It is not necessarily to assume that the criterion of intellectual superiority is wholly adequate, or that the superiority itself is either hereditary or abiding. The adequacy of the criterion and the degree of permanence of the superiority which has been found can later be judged in the light of follow-up studies in which the promise of youth is compared with the performance of manhood and womanhood. Regardless of the results which such follow-up studies may yield, it is unquestionably a matter of considerable importance to ascertain the present traits of children earning high intelligence scores. The nature of many of these traits has been indicated in considerable detail in preceding chapters, and the numerous chapter summaries render an inclusive summarization at this point unnecessary. It remains only to bring together a few of the outstanding results of the study and to suggest problems for further investigation. First, however, the reader is cautioned to bear in mind the variability which obtains in the so-called gifted group with respect to the various traits that have been rated or measured. The group has been described throughout in terms of the deviation of its average from the average of unselected children. It does not follow that what is true of the group is true of all its individual members. Where it could be done without unduly extending the report, complete distributions of both the gifted group and the control group have been given. Where this was not feasible, the amount of dispersion from the central tendency has ordinarily been indicated. In most cases, the amount of overlapping of the two groups can readily be computed from the data given, where such computations have not already been made. Doubtless a more compelling realization of the lack of homogeneity of the group in physical, mental, and personality traits could be had from clinical descriptions of appropriately selected cases. At another time, it may be possible to prepare a series of case studies. Their exclusion from the present volume has been a matter of necessity. The validity of the generalizations made regarding the traits which characterize gifted children hinges upon the representative nature of the group studied. We have been at considerable pains to ensure that the group would not be, to any considerable extent, unrepresentative of that entire portion of the child population which is capable of earning an intelligence quotient of 140 or above. We believe that our efforts in this direction have been reasonably successful. It is unlikely that more than 20% of the cases have been missed, out of the total number of children who could have qualified in the school population canvassed. The loss may not have exceeded 10%. Granted that the cases missed might, for some traits, have yielded distributions differing appreciably from those actually found, there is no likelihood that their inclusion would have modified in any important respect the nature of the conclusions that have been drawn. So far as the traits which have been measured are concerned, one is justified in believing that the characterizations which hold for the experimental group hold for gifted children in general. It is perhaps more important to bear in mind the limits of the field covered by the various tests and measurements that have been applied. For example, it cannot be supposed that the intelligence of our subjects has been measured in all its aspects by the two intelligence tests used, that the full scope and depth of interests have been measured by the interest data, or that the available samplings of character and personality traits tell all it would be worthwhile to know about this group of trait complexes. The 25 traits which have been rated by the parents and teachers are so many out of possible hundreds, although it is hoped they are among the most important. The physical measurements and medical examinations were exceptionally complete, but they leave altogether untouched a great many things that one would like to know about the physical correlates of superior mentality. Nevertheless, incomplete and fragmentary as our data are, when compared with the many-sided richness of a child's total mental and physical development, it may justly be claimed that they carry us well beyond the bounds of previously established fact. Character analysis and case descriptions based upon the subjective evaluation of the best data to be had from ordinary observation can never take the place of quantitative measurements, even of the crudest sort. If our data are incomplete, they are, at any rate, for the most part, objective and verifiable. No degree of completeness could possibly make good the fault of subjectivity and unverifiableness. If the methods that have been employed have at times led to erroneous conclusions, these in time will be discovered and corrected. One who suspects error at any point has only to apply the same or demonstrably better objective methods to test the justness of his suspicions. It is to be hoped that sooner or later all our conclusions will thus be put to trial. The ultimate value of our study will be measured more by the investigations when it stimulates or provokes others to make than by the amount of its factual data that later experiments may verify. What are the outstanding characteristics of this group of gifted children? Space is available for mention of but a few, and the temptation to extended discussion must be resisted. The group contains an unexpectedly large proportion of cases in the upper IQ ranges. Assuming the standard deviation of the IQ distribution for unselected children to be between 15 and 18, there is an appreciable excess of 150 IQ cases or better over and above the theoretical expectation. Above 160 IQ, the number of cases found increases out of all proportion to the theoretically unexpected number, and by IQ 170 exceeds it several times. Unless this discrepancy can be explained as due to the imperfection of the IQ technique, it would appear that the distribution of intelligence in the child population departs considerably from that described by the normal probability curve. The group contains a significant, though not overwhelming, preponderance of boys. This finding is not in harmony with any expectations that could be based upon a comparison of the mean scores earned in intelligence tests by unselected boys and girls of corresponding age. No thoroughly convincing explanation can be formulated from the data at hand, although an examination of various hypotheses suggests that the cause may possibly lie in the greater variability of boys. The fact that the excess of boys over girls is far greater in the high school group than in the younger gifted group raises the question whether the mental growth of boys tends to continue somewhat beyond the level which marks the mental maturity of girls. In physical growth and general health, the gifted group unquestionably rates on the whole somewhat above par. There is no shred of evidence to support the widespread opinion that typically the intellectually precocious child is weak, undersized, or nervously unstable. In so far as a gifted child departs at all from the average on these traits, it is pretty certainly in the other direction, but the fact seems to be that his deviation from the norm on physical traits is in most cases very small indeed in comparison with his deviation in intellectual and volitional traits. Even the slight superiority that he enjoys with respect to physical equipment may or may not be due primarily to endowment. It might be accounted for mainly, if not entirely, by such factors as diet, medical care, and other environmental influences. To explain by the environmental hypothesis the relatively much greater deviation of our group from unselected children with respect to intellectual and volitional traits appears difficult if not impossible. Our data, however, offer no convincing proof, merely numerous converging lines of evidence. There is marked excess of Jewish and of Northern and Western European stock represented. The number of highly successful, even eminent relatives is impressively great. The fact that in a state which justly prides itself on the equality of educational opportunity provided for its children of every class and station, an impartially selected gifted group should draw so heavily from the higher occupational levels and so highly from the lower throws a heavy burden upon the environmental hypothesis. In spite of all our effort to equalize educational opportunity, the 10-year-old child of the California laborer competes for high IQ rank no more successfully than the laborer's son competed for the genius rank in Europe 100 years ago. This statement is based upon a comparison of the relative number in our group and the Galton D. Candold-Ellis genius groups of individuals whose parents belonged to the unskilled or semi-skilled labor classes. Previous studies had only demonstrated the superiority of the higher occupational and social class with respect to the number of finished geniuses produced, and it was only natural that many should prefer to explain this superiority on the ground of educational opportunity. We have demonstrated that the superiority of the same occupational and social classes is no less decisive when the compared offspring are at an age at which educational opportunity is about as nearly equalized as an enlightened democracy can make it. Two possible environmental causes of the intellectual superiority of our gifted group are definitely excluded by the data that have been presented. 1. Formal schooling, and 2. Parental income. It has been shown that within a given age group, the intelligence and achievement scores earned are totally uncorrelated with length of school attendance. The median family income does not greatly exceed that for the general population of the cities in question. The families of some of our most gifted subjects are in financial circumstances below the level of moderate comfort. In a majority of cases, the superiority of the gifted group is evidenced at a very early age. Among the most commonly mentioned indications are intellectual curiosity, wealth of miscellaneous information, and desire to learn to read. The frequent presence of such traits among our subjects in the preschool period suggests strongly the influence of endowment. Although in a small minority of cases, attempts at forced culture may have contributed to the result, it is manifestly imposed to account for the general superiority of the group by any such influence. There are, nevertheless, many persons who believe that intelligence quotients can be manufactured to order by the application of suitable methods of training. There are even prominent educators and psychologists who are inclined to regard such a pedagogical feat as within the realm of possibility, and no one knows that it is not. If it is possible, it is time we were finding it out. Conclusive evidence as to the extent to which IQs can be artificially raised could be supplied in a few years by an experiment which would cost a few $100,000 or almost a few $1 million. The knowledge would probably be worth to humanity 1,000 times that amount. Although the majority of our children have had the advantage of superior cultural influences in the home, their more formal educational opportunities have been entirely commonplace, in no way superior to those enjoyed by the children from the humblest families of Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Oakland. At school they have studied and played with the children of the generality. The school has provided for them no special program of instruction. It has given no form of individual treatment except an occasional extra promotion. Such promotions have usually been doubly or trebly earned, for it has been demonstrated by reliable and extensive achievement tests that the average child of our group has already mastered the subject matter of the curriculum 2 or 3 grades beyond that in which he was located. More accurately, this promotional slack amounts on the average to about 25% of the child's age. Perhaps because of this fact, the superiority of the group in achievement is only 2/3 or 3/4 as great as its superiority in intelligence. It is evidently a rare experience for a gifted child to begin work of a grade of difficulty commensurate with his intellectual abilities. The excess in achievement above the norm for the gifted child's actual grade status is general rather than special. There is somewhat less marked in spelling and arithmetic than in general information, reading, and language. The amount of specialization or unevenness in the abilities of our group was made the subject of extended study by Dr. DeVos. His reports show that in respect to measurable disparity of abilities, the gifted child differs little, if at all, from children in general. The one-sidedness of precocious children is mythical. The fact that a considerable proportion of all children show appreciable specialization in their achievements. The gifted child has only his share of this common human trait. Nevertheless, the measurable disparities found are such as to show clearly the necessity of taking them into account in any scheme of vocational or educational guidance for children of every grade of intelligence. It will be one of the important problems in the follow-up of these gifted children to work out the degree of correlation between the specialized achievement in adult life and the special aptitudes discovered in this investigation. The matter of interest was deemed of sufficient importance to warrant investigation from several angles. As would be expected, the interests of gifted children reflect in many ways their intellectual superiority. The school subjects which they like best are for the most part the subjects which unselected children find the most difficult. The vocations which they prefer rank fairly high in the occupational hierarchy with respect to the intellectual demands they make. The reading of gifted children surpasses that of unselected children both in quantity and quality. The typical gifted child of 7 years reads more books than the unselected child reads at any age up to 15 years. Gifted children have more than the usual interest in books of science, history, biography, travel, and informational fiction, and less in books of adventure, mystery, and emotional fiction. The common opinion that intellectually superior children are characterized by a deficiency of play interests has been shown to be wholly unfounded. The mean play information quotient of the gifted group is 136. The typical gifted child of 9 years has a larger body of definite knowledge about plays and games than the average child of 12 years. If he devotes somewhat fewer hours per week to play activities, it is because his play interests must compete with a wealth of other interests which are no less compelling. Another finding of considerable importance in this connection is that the play interests of the gifted boy are above rather than below the normal in degree of masculinity. The experiment carried out for the purpose of measuring the strength of interests along intellectual, social, and activity lines is perhaps one of the most significant reported in the entire study, whether considered from the point of view of methodology or results. It is probable that the type of instrument which Mrs. Wyman designed for this purpose will be found capable of unlocking many hitherto inaccessible regions of human personality and interest. Adaptation of her method might be devised which would aid in the discovery of special aptitudes and the diagnosis of pre-delinquent and pre-psychotic tendencies. In the present instance, the Wyman test has given a fairly precise measure of 3 important aspects of interest. It has shown that in strength of intellectual interest, 90% of our gifted children surpass the average of a control group, that the superiority of the gifted in strength of social interests is well nigh as great, and that in activity interests the two groups are practically indistinguishable. That our gifted surpass unselected children in tests of honesty, trustworthiness, and similar moral traits will probably surprise no observant judge of human character. Few have ever denied that there is at least a certain amount of positive correlation between intelligence and character. The Cady-Raubenheimer test shows that it is considerable. Considering the total score of the 7 character tests used, one can say that the gifted child of 9 or 10 years has reached a stage of moral development which is not attained by the average child until the age of 13 or 14. Approximately 85% of the gifted surpass the average of unselected children. The test results in this point are confirmed by the testimony of special class teachers of gifted children. The tests in question are measures of untrustworthiness, of dishonesty of report, of tendency to overstatement, of objectionable social moral attitudes, and of interest in questionable books and questionable companions. A modification of Woodworth's test of psychotic tendencies showed approximately 75% of the gifted above the average of unselected children. Comparison of later mental troubles and conduct disorders with the results of these tests will be of surprising interest. It should be emphasized, however, that one could find in the gifted group numerous exceptions to the general rule with respect to character, personality, and emotional stability. The gifted are not free from faults, and at least 1 out of 5 has more of them than the average child of the general population. Perhaps 1 out of 20 presents a more or less serious problem in one or another respect. The ratings secured from parents and teachers on the 25 mental, moral, social, and physical traits are of value chiefly in their confirmation of the results secured by the method of test. These ratings undoubtedly have a very low reliability for an individual subject, but when used as a basis for comparing the relatively large gifted and control groups, they yield reasonably dependable results. For example, one can say with considerable assurance that gifted children excel the average most of all in intellectual and volitional traits, next in emotional and moral traits, and least in physical and social traits. The purpose and form of this report have tended almost inevitably to center attention upon the traits of the gifted group rather than upon the control group which they have been compared. To an extent this is unfortunate. A volume could have been devoted to fuller treatment and discussion of the data collected for unselected children, including sex and age differences in each of the following: scholastic and occupational interests, play interests and play information, reading interests, teachers' ratings of scholastic abilities, interest tests, character and personality tests, and ratings by teachers and parents on the 25 selected traits. The reader who is interested may assemble for himself the most essential data on these points from the various chapters of this report. Lack of space prevented our performing this service for him. Special attention is called to the significance of such data as the age and sex differences disclosed by the interest and personality tests and by the 25 trait ratings. On these and other traits, important data are to be found on the relative variability of the sexes, especially on pages 475, 508 to 512, and 537 to 538. Examination of these data will show that the evidence on variability is inconsistent and therefore inconclusive. A study of superior talent inevitably raises a host of pedagogical problems. It has been no part of our purpose, however, to exploit any theory as to the educational methods best adapted to the gifted child. About the culture of genius next to nothing is known, although new light may in time be expected from the rapidly increasing experimentation with differentiated curricula. Classification by ability and methods of individual instruction. Traditional methods have ignored the problem. Their influence is negative rather than positive. The best that can be hoped for them is that they may not be as bad as they seem. The present neglect of superior talent is sufficiently indicated by the inability of teachers to recognize it. One of the most astonishing facts brought out in this investigation is that one's best chance of identifying the brightest child in a schoolroom is to examine the birth records and select the youngest, rather than take the one rated as brightest by the teacher. Follow-up data covering the first 2 years after the subjects were located are encouraging. Grade progress and quality of schoolwork indicate that general ability is being fully maintained. The previous good record of school deportment has been improved, and difficulties in the field of social adjustment are clearing up. It is probably very significant that the children who receive the greatest number of extra promotions are in general the ones whose schoolwork has the most improved in quality. Prediction as to the probable future of these children would be profitless. We can only wait and watch. It should be pointed out, however, that to expect all or even a majority of the subjects to obtain any considerable degree of eminence would be unwarranted optimism. In the first place, eminence is a poor measure of success. In the second place, success even in the best sense is largely a product of fortunate chance combinations of personal merits and environmental circumstances. In the third place, the group itself, although far superior to the average, is nothing like as highly selected as the groups of genius adults studied by Galton, de Candolle, Ellis, Castle, Cattell, and others. Each of Galton's subjects, for example, ranked in eminence at least as high as the first in 4,000 adults of the general population. To qualify for our gifted group, it was only necessary for a child to rate as high as the first in 200. Only about one of our subjects in 20, or about 50 in the group of 1,000, would rank as the first in 4,000 of a random selection. About 1 man in 1,000 in the generality finds his way into who's who. 20% of our boys rank as high in IQ as the first in 1,000 taken at random. But we should hardly expect so large a proportion to attain who's distinction. Perhaps no one would contend that this or any similar type of eminence is more than moderately correlated with general intelligence. In a city of 25,000 population, there are, say, 5,000 males above the age of 30 years. It is with the most distinguished 25 to 50 of such a group that our gifted boys could be most fairly compared a few decades hence. It is hoped that some of the latter volumes, which are planned for this series of genetic studies of genius, will add at least something to our present knowledge about the origin of exceptional talent, the methods of culture adapted to ensure its fullest development, and the social and government policies that will conserve and utilize it to the best advantage of all. These are the great problems of genius. They are outranked in importance by few, if any, of the issues that confront mankind. They cannot be solved except in the light of psychological, biological, and educational researches along lines that are still almost wholly unexplored. End of section 22. And the end of Genetic Studies of Genius, Volume 1, Mental and Physical Traits of 1,000 Gifted Children, by Lewis Terman. Recorded by Leon Harvey.